Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 42.5. For those of you that maybe don't know what we're talking about because you're tuning in after the live stream, of course, we tried to do this a couple of days ago and it did not work. The stream seems to be working okay at the moment. If for whatever reason the stream does crap out, fingers crossed it won't, Tony and I do have a backup plan, but let's not talk about that and out of sight, out of mind, shall we? Hey, it's Wednesday.
Wednesday night.
Yeah, Wednesday, October the 16th, 2019, 9:02 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm in Toronto, Canada. Tony is in Atlanta, Georgia. And this is episode 42, and we're talking the Amityville Horror again. And Poltergeist, but we're going to recap it again because I said to Tony, I really want this on the channel. You know, I feel it's like sloppy. I feel like it's a project that's unfinished and it's just sitting there collecting dust or something. So for those of you that did tune in a couple of days ago and you're like, they're going to go through it again. Yeah, we're going to go through it again, but we're going to go through it in the most entertaining way possible. It's an opportunity to do what we did before, but better. Tony, how the hell are you?
Dude, I'm doing good. Now I got to remember this shit that I watched a few days ago. I'm like, fuck, I already forgot.
Yeah.
When you turn 40, you forget shit really easy.
You do. You forget shit. You know, your brain is starting to get fuzzy. I mean, I was at the grocery store today and I was like, hey man, do I already have orange juice? Fuck, man. Do I have orange juice or not? Oh, fuck it. I'll buy another one. Yeah, I already had it. But that's okay. I've got some more orange juice in the fridge. It's always good. It's good shit. So
I'm hoping Wednesday, maybe given the Wednesday Addams horror thing, maybe Wednesday might be our lucky day and the stream will go off good, So calling on the Wednesday Addams power, help our channel out, or Dave's channel out tonight. And
that's right. That's right. Yes. Maybe it will. Let's keep our fingers crossed. Welcome everybody to episode 42. We're talking the Amityville Horror 1979, or we were going to talk the Amityville Horror, but that's a whole other movie.
That's a whole other movie.
Yeah, I don't know if it's another movie,
but it ended up being a whole other platform, channel, website, and all.
That'd be awesome. 1979, the original Amityville Horror, and we're also talking the original Poltergeist from 1982. We're going to start with the Amityville Horror, so let's jump right into it. Tony, I watched this last weekend. I hadn't seen it in a very, very, very long time, but I enjoyed it. It's one of my favorites. It is a classic of the genre, even though it was, critically panned in 1979. It did make close to, I think it was like $80 or $90 million when it was released, becoming one of the most successful independent horror movies of its time. And certainly it's based on the true story, which we'll talk about in a few moments. But let's start with the movie. What did you think of the movie?
Oh, I love the movie. It's, it's a go-to movie that I always like, coming back to. It's not one that I watch every year, but I can definitely say it's one that I'll watch every couple years. In fact, I watched it twice this year. I was like, wow, because I watched it like a few months ago or whatever, but we were committing to do this show and I was like, well, fuck, I'm going to have to watch it again. So I think that's the most that I've watched Amityville, like in that short a time frame in a really long time. But it's cool. It's always fun to revisit the movie. I mentioned this the other night. I love that old late 70s grit to the film. You're watching a movie that was made on film, not digital film. That's one of the aesthetic looks that I like to it. It has that Exorcist type feel where when you're watching the movie, you feel that this is a fall time of year, late fall specifically, just in moments when, Roland is outside chopping wood and you hear the leaves blowing, you see the trees blowing and whatnot. Like you just really get that sense, and he's not even sweating that much, so you're really even the attention to details of the time of year and everything was very good in this movie. Even though I know, critics are critics, whatever. I don't really put much weight into a critic's opinion on what I think a movie is good or bad. You know what I mean? I I never bought into it. Then of course you got, Margot, Margot. I'm thinking of Margot Robbie.
Margot Kidder.
Yeah, thank you. We're talking Lois Lane at her prime, and she was looking good in this movie.
She was probably one of the greatest side boobs in the history of cinema.
For sure, because every comic book nerd is like, Lois, side boob, love it. Although I think she does have, I think she did Playboy back in the 70s. I'm almost for certain that she did a Playboy issue. Someone help me out on that in the chat room and correct me if I'm wrong. Now, I'm not saying she was nude, but I do know she did a Playboy.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure about that. Yeah, this is a classic. I mean, this is, in any way you slice it, it's a classic. And of course, when it came out in 1979, you obviously have the true story benefit to it. And for those of you that may not know what it is, of course, okay, let me not get too far ahead of myself. I love the opening of this movie. I love the opening credit sequence. I love the fact that it's that red and black and, the theme, which I believe I think that was nominated for an Oscar, believe it or not. I think, but I stand to be corrected on that. Love the theme, love the opening credits, and like you, the cinematography. I mean, this is, there's a lot of horror movies in the 70s where you get this. They're gritty, the film stock, the cinematography. You really feel the fall autumn vibe through the cinematography in this movie. It's not a movie that I would watch on a regular basis, but it is a movie that I would put in a Rolodex if I was planning a movie, not a movie marathon, but like a night where, you have friends over, or you're sitting with your girlfriend, or, your boyfriend, or your husband or wife, or whatever the case is. I'm somebody that would throw it in there with, old school. I'd throw it in with maybe it's an old school night, right? Old school 70s nights. Okay, we're going to watch The Exorcist. We're going to watch the Amityville Horror. We're going to watch The Hills Have Eyes, or something like that. It's a classic haunted house creepiness to it, and it's not overly sensational, which is, a lot of people don't realize that it's actually quite subdued in a lot of regards.
Very tamed.
It is. It's got very much The Exorcist is a far better movie, but it's got an Exorcist vibe to it in terms of its pacing. Yep. And how it's a more of a drawn out sort of film, and I like that slow burn. I like that kind of thing. And of course, James Brolin, which is Josh Brolin's father, he's playing George Lutz, and Margot Kidder, Kathy. This is essentially about the Lutz family that moved into the Amityville house a year later after the Defeo murders. Defeo or Defoe? Defeo, right?
No, you're thinking of William Defoe.
Yeah, something of William Defoe. Defeo, that's right. Ronald Defeo. About a year later, because the house couldn't sell. Now, this is the true story. The house could not sell because of what happened there, so the price kept getting chopped down. Yeah. And the Lutz family eventually moved in with their kids, or her kids, I should say. And they were only in there for 28 days. And that's true. They were only in there for 28 days. That is actually true. And they say that the reason they were only in there for 28 days is because over those 4 weeks, over that month, just things became weirder and weirder, and more supernatural things began to happen, and eventually coming to this crescendo of God knows what. I don't even think we still know. I don't know if the Lutz said, like, oh, we can't really talk about it. It's a bit of, I'm not 100% sure, but something happened where they left all their belongings there. They left one night and they never to return.
Ooh, I'm glad you said that, because I forgot to mention this the other night, because we all, I think, would unanimously agree that this was a fake story that they came up with. I would say a very highly fabricated story.
I was just about to get to that. Before you say what you're going to say, I just want to finish by saying that what I just said, that's all true. There were murders that were in the house in 1974, and the Lutzes did move in 1975, and they were there for a month. And they did say that they experienced weird shit. And then there was a book written about it. It became a movie. They did interviews, and the legend of the Amityville Horror began. And there's no doubt about it that regardless of whether you believe in it or not, whether you believe it's fake or not, it is to this day one of the most famous, iconic, haunted house, legendary stories in history.
Oh, for sure.
But I'm doing a bit of research on it, and if you actually do research objectively, which not a lot of people do because we as human beings tend to only look into things that, confirm our bias. If you do your best to look at both sides, you do come to realize that it's probably bullshit. What the Lutzes were saying, or at the very least, extreme exaggeration. Tony, what were you going to say to that?
No, what I was starting to say is how, it's a huge gamble. I mean, this is the only part of the story that I don't get, and why I say maybe some shit might have gone down, but not like what we saw on screen, because it's a fucking gamble to leave your shit behind, knowing you may not get a payoff from it to collect your stuff again or get new stuff. I mean, that's a big gamble, when you think about that, even if it is 1970, whatever, and they may not have all the materialistic things that we have today in modern time with technology, meaning computers and stuff like that. Most homes nowadays have a computer or a cell phone of some sorts. Even take that out of the equation, it's still their material stuff. It's their clothes. It's everything. Leaving that shit behind to gamble on that what you're about to do and tell this fake story is going to pay off, because it totally could have backfired on them and nothing. But they did get paid out for it. Their story was told. It was
they made
and out pretty well. So but that's a gamble, and that's where I'm like, would you really gamble your life stuff and say, okay, we're going to come out with this fabricated story?
Well, I guess it depends. I mean, if they had conjured up something and they thought, well, here's what we're going to do, it's the end game, and that makes it look really good, to the exact reason you're saying. They might have known that. They might have known this looks really good if we just leave everything behind. It just gives more credibility to our story. And if they don't end up getting a payoff, well, maybe they could have made some excuse to go back and pick up their,
stuff.
I don't know, but
that's one part of it that's like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree. And when you watch the movie, everything that happens in the movie, there are things that happen in the movie and it's a great movie. Like, if you just take the movie at face value on its own merits as a creepy haunted house movie, that might be true. It's definitely creepy. It's old school. It's a bit dated. Sure, it's 1979, but it's good. But here's an example. Like, even George Lutz says this, right? The scene in the movie with the priest and the flies, when he goes into the room and the flies are all over the wall, which is very strange because it's like November and what the hell's going on? There shouldn't be this many flies, and the creepy shots of the flies' eyes, if they're, all that stuff is over-exaggerated. And even George Lutz says it's over-exaggerated, says there were not that many flies and they were not attacking people and, all that kind of stuff. That is sensationalism for the movie. And I believe, I stand to be corrected, but I believe the ending of the movie, when they're running down the stairs and the steps are they're bleeding and the walls are bleeding, never happened. Even George Lutz himself says that never happened. So, I mean, just watching the movie itself is not a good historical sort of documentation into your first window into the Amityville Horror, because it's this exaggerated, as a lot of true stories tend to be when we're talking about these supernatural and horror genres. I mean, look at the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, right?
Exactly.
But it's a good movie on its own merits, and it's genuinely creepy. I mean, some of my favorite moments are the opening of the movie when the real estate agent is taking George and Kathy through the house, and when she opens the door to some of the bedrooms where the murders took place, it's a smash cut to just a shotgun, going off, and then it cuts right back to, and this is where this happened, and or not where it happened, but this is your room, and it was creepy. It was unsettling. It took me out. It took me in a weird sort of direction. I wasn't expecting that. It's very jarring and loud. And what's great about it is ordinarily, I'm not a big fan of loud noises being the catalyst that scares, or being the trigger that scares you, right? We see that a lot in horror films. It's very cliche. A lot of, da-da, or, somebody's walking and they turn a corner, it's, bah! There's like a sound effect, right? A stinger, as they call them. In this case, I didn't mind the shotgun scaring me every few moments as the real estate agent was showing them around, because it was the shotgun that committed the murders. And so it was a symbol. It wasn't just a random noise to scare you. It was a symbol of the murders that took place. It was relevant to the story. And that I really liked. I really liked that. There's a lot like, what are some things in there, Tony, that really was effective for you?
Yeah, just to piggyback off of the flashback sequence of the Defeo murders, I thought that those were cut well in the movie. Like you said, during the tour of the house, when Kidder has the dream in bed, and she wakes up, shot him or something like that. She screams. I can't remember word for word, but she's dreaming about the incidents that happened, or the incident that happened in the house.
Right.
So I thought that was well done in tying it in together. And I'm sure when we get towards the end of this, talking about Amityville, we'll both rehash our opinions on the true Amityville horror. So, and I think that was sort of the, but I think that was the undertone in the movie, was placing the real life story in there, the Amityville horror. But yeah, no, just some of the other small scenes with the, like when the priest has his freak out, I thought that, again, well acted, well played.
Brilliant.
This movie, I know some people feel that the movie is choppy at times and it doesn't blend into scenes, but I think you have to look at it from a different point of view, meaning, like, for example, when Brolin is in the living room alone, playing George Lutz, and he has that moment where he's like, I'm losing my mind, but we don't see it. I know people, like, I think the problem is we've become so brainwashed in 2019 with modern horror movies that unless we see it, we're going to be like, well, what the fuck's going on? I've always said, sometimes it's what you don't see, that's the fucking scary shit. And when he's having his freak out there, you're like, all right, this dude's fucking tripping on some real shit right now. What is going on? I like that shit. It's very creepy. Any thoughts on that as well?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I mean, there's a lot of creepiness and eeriness to that film. I like that. And, is the acting a little dramatic? Sure, but it's 1979,
right,
and right, exactly. But I mean, there's a lot of, the acting in Halloween's not very good, so, you take it with a grain of salt. But at the time, I mean, Brolin, I mean, he was a really well-respected, good actor at the time. And he was great in this role. I mean, he looks like somebody you just don't want to, he played that descent into madness really well. And I love the scene.
Bounce back from it too at times. I was like, man, this dude is on point.
Yeah, and I love the scene when Margot wakes up in bed and out of the blue just yells, he shot them all, or they're all dead, or something to that. And she screams it at the top of her lungs, and then she just casually, kind of like as if she's still in a dream state. She's almost lucid dreaming, perhaps, and she just kind of goes back to bed. And Brolin is like, Kathy, are you okay? What's going on? And really, like, imagine lying in bed with your significant other. It's 3:00 in the morning, and they shoot up like a fucking bat out of hell and scream at the top of their lungs in your dark bedroom in the middle of the night. They shot them all! He shot them all! Or whatever. It's like, what the fuck? And then they just go back to sleep. Creepy shit. Creepy. Really well done. And that was really cool. Love when the sound effect with the when the priest is told to get out of the house. Now, because what they did there is they didn't play it in a demonic sense. You didn't hear "get out."
It was almost like a whistle.
Yeah. Well, at first it was like "get out," and then it gets loud. It's like, but it sounds almost like a normal voice, like "get out," like that, like just yelling. But the effect that they did in post was they raised the it sounds like they raised the volume to a point where the levels are peaking, so it's causing distortion. So they didn't, I don't think they deepened the pitch or made it sound demonic like, The Exorcist or anything, or or anything like that, but it peaked. So it was a distortion, like it was coming from a different realm or something like that, but it sounded like a normal voice. I like that. That was a nice touch. Liked when Margot, when the little girl is singing, Jesus loves me, I know he does, or whatever the song is, and Margot walks into the bedroom and you see the other rocking chair that the little girl is talking to
her friend,
suddenly stops.
Yep.
Little subtle things like that. It's full of shit like that.
And when you think in contrast, for example, let's use that scene, and now let's fast forward to The Conjuring. And when the little girl's talking about her friend Rory,
right,
we end up seeing Rory because, the mom does the little, and then briefly, see, that's what I mean by like back in the day, they didn't give away that shit. And I would like to see filmmakers maybe go back to that. Again, I know we've been, I hate to use the word brainwash, but we have been brainwashed to the point where, if we don't see it, we're not going to like it. We're like, well, I didn't know what the fuck they were seeing, man. This shit's fucking dumb and stupid. I mean, it's true. But when you look at it in contrast to The Conjuring pretty much shows you all its payoffs. I mean, you're seeing it not even halfway through the movie. You're seeing, the payoffs start to happen. And, when Mrs. Warren is played by Vera, she sees the thing hanging from the tree and shit. You know what I mean? Like,
oh, yeah.
The Amityville, which I didn't really get the connection there for a second, but the Warren. So yeah, the Amityville, your payoff isn't until the end. And yes, okay, you can say that you saw the cat's eyes, or you can say you briefly, but no, the pig was actually.
Was it a cat as well? I mean, there's always that,
Yeah. The pig was at the end when you saw the pig in the window. Which
never happened, even according to George Lutz.
So those are the only real two visuals other than the walls bleeding red. Everything else is left up to our imagination to go like, okay, well, why did the window close on the kid's hands? And why could they not open it up? Why did George Lutz throw a fucking axe and fucking perfectly hits the fucking tree?
See, and here
like that. And I like that we don't see it.
Right, and here's a perfect example. According to the documentary, the one that I watched.
Yeah.
George Lutz, in the movie, you see the window come smashing down on the kid's hands. Why did the window suddenly? And they couldn't lift the window up. Right, they got two guys trying to lift the window up. They couldn't lift the window up. Oh my God! And in the movie, they take him to the hospital, and there were no broken bones apparently, and apparently in the book that is, according to George Lutz, what they did. But I don't know if it was the Independent journalist or somebody wanted the records from the hospital to prove that the Lutzes had made a trip to the hospital, and once he was approached about that, well, if you say that you went to the hospital to have your sons, then the hospital should have a record of you being there. George Lutz changed his story, and so I mean, like I think it's one of the people said that he suddenly said, well, actually we were able to handle it in this. Watch it again, and it's like, like there's certain, it's. It's things like that don't bode well, and so
if this were to happen today, I think people would quickly not only question it, but they might question, was George abusing the kid in 2019?
Right.
Because
it even wasn't his children, it was Kathy's children.
Exactly. I think that's the way that they would approach it nowadays. Because I mentioned the other day when we did this initially, when you think of the religious themes throughout this movie, the cross, when she asks him to hang the cross in the living room or whatever, because the light would reflect off of it, and then when he's going around the house and she is too, and they're saying the prayers, or when the little girl is singing about Jesus in the bedroom.
That's right.
In modern day filmmaking, all that would have been cut out. They may still keep the priest in there, because you see a little bit of the priests in The Conjuring, but anything with a heavy religious undertone to it, they wouldn't do that anymore in 2019.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, they might do it, but not, it's heavy. Yeah. No, I mean, it's a great movie, and it's got some genuine creepiness. The thunderstorm, the lightning, the cat's eyes or whatever it was out the window, right? Like that was creepy. Apparently that actually, well, I think that is where the idea of the pig came from, if I'm not mistaken. It's something to do. because she kept saying, yeah, oh, I gotta read up on that again. Anyway, Amityville Horror movie, great movie, really cool movie. Take it with a grain of salt. Even George Lutz, the guy who was in there with his family who left, even he acknowledges that there's a lot of sensationalism in the movie, as Hollywood often does. But what really gets me about the Amityville Horror, what I find the creepiest about the Amityville Horror is the real story of the Amityville Horror that we know to be concrete and fact, and that is the Defeo Murders in November of 1974, which was the catalyst that started this whole thing to begin with. I mean, this is genuinely creepy. Listen to this, for those of you that don't know. So in November 14th, I think it was, November 13th or 14th, 1974, they're living in the Amityville house was the Defeo family, and they were Italian, very Catholic, and there was the mother, the father, and the five kids, I think. And
I think so.
Ronald Defeo was the oldest boy, and he was like, what, 21 or something, and he didn't have a very good relationship with his dad, had a very toxic relationship, and Ronald wasn't really going anywhere in life. You know, Ronald, right? That's his name, I think. Yeah. Yep. He wasn't going anywhere, at least nowhere fast. He was into drugs. He was into drinking. He was, you ask the neighbors, you ask friends of his at that time, not going anywhere. So, what Ronald decided to do, according, there's a lot of stories because it's changed over the years, especially with Ronald. The basic, what they think happened was that Ronald conspired. Well, first of all, at 3:00 in the morning on November 14th, I think it was, 1974, Ronald, the official story is Ronald got up at 3:00 in the morning or came home or whatever it is and took a shotgun and shot every one of his family members. His mother, his father, by himself now, his mother, his father, his two brothers, and his two sisters. Mother, father, two brothers, two sisters. 1, 2, 3.
In a house on multi-levels, not on one floor.
Right. Sorry, I was just trying to make sure I had that right.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. On a couple of different levels with a shotgun blast that was really loud. This is like 3:00 in the morning, and he eventually confessed to the murders down the street at a bar or something. His friends found the bodies. All the bodies were found face down in their beds. The coroner, the cops even said, well, they must have been moved. No, according to the official report, they were all murdered in their bed. Now, this is the creepy part. How does somebody take a shotgun? We're not talking about, like it is in the movies and you got like a silent. No, we're talking a shotgun going off like a shoot your mother, your father, your two brothers, and your two sisters in their beds. Nobody woke up and heard this?
And no neighbors heard it.
And no neighbors heard it.
And there were neighbors up that night, too.
Yes, there were, because they heard the dog barking going crazy.
Right.
So it's really eerie that this was you shoot your mother, you're in the head, right? He goes up, nobody heard this, nobody got up. It's really, and all of them were found face down.
Have you ever heard a shotgun go off?
Oh, yes.
In real life?
Yes.
You know damn well, if you hear that, you're waking up. I mean, if it's in your house.
Especially in a house.
The fuck up, like, what the fuck?
Well, especially when you hear 3 or 4 go off.
Right.
In your house? Like, where the noise is echoing off the walls?
Yeah.
Exactly. Really creepy. Now, some people believe, including the authorities think, that Ronald Defeo conspired with the oldest sister, I think, to murder the parents. And he was too intoxicated and inebriated from whatever to go through with it that night. So the sister took the shotgun and murdered everybody. And then when Ronald got up and found that she had also murdered the brothers and the sister, he got so pissed off that he then killed her. He absolutely killed somebody that night because everybody was found dead but him. But the question then becomes, did he murder everybody? Or was it the sister and then he got pissed off and murdered her? Or was it a mob hit? Because that was what he was saying at first. And then when it went to trial, he was pleading insanity and he was having the psychoanalysis. And it was only later, like, people know it as, oh, it was voices that told him to do it. I mean, watch that movie, the Amityville movie that came out last year about the Defeo murders. It's such a sensationalism piece of garbage that talks about the voices that told him to do it. Well, that is an official story, but that official story wasn't until much later. Like, Ronald was not talking about voices and possession and shit like that until much later, which presumably to get the plea of insanity.
In one of the documentaries, because there's a couple of good documentaries on the real Amityville story, and one of the officers who was in the documentary, because I went back and rewatched it that night after our stream fail, the cops felt that it was a mob hit, because Ron's father had some dealings that were kind of shady, because I think he was like a car salesman or some shit in the city, and he did some shady things that they felt it was some type of a connection with that. And that's, and the fall guy was
Ronald. Yep. It was, interesting. Interesting. But then
it almost seems like the probable, like, I hate saying that because I feel like I'm going to get hit by a mob. You know what I mean? Like, but
well, because you're Italian? Come on.
Italian.
Hey.
But no, I mean, like, when you look at like the reality of it, like what we just said, how is it that a dude is going to go into a multi-level house, fire off that many shots?
Yes.
Right? And nobody wakes the fuck up unless it's like a total, mob hit, which means you're sending in a group of people. Everyone's pretty much firing all at once and done. Same type of gun, which, you totally can do.
Right. Or somebody that has the access to certain devices that may be able to mute a gun or whatever the case is. But for 121
shotgun.
No, I just mean that well, yeah, that's true. That's true. Because they apparently were all shot with a shotgun. Yeah. I just think that it's very eerie. And so the official story of the Amityville Horror, you don't even need the Lutz story to just listen to it and go, it's so creepy. It's like, I'm not saying it's Manson-esque, but I'm saying that it's when you think of the Manson murders and when you think of Manson and when you think of that night and the creepiness and the legend that surrounds it, it's the official story is creepy in and of itself. And it's almost like that for me and even Tony as well with the Amityville Horror. That doesn't mean that the Lutzes didn't experience something. I mean, maybe they were in there and maybe their imaginations got the best of them. Maybe, they knew that they were living in a house where they did know that. That's why it was so cheap. Where 6 people were murdered and maybe there were weird things that happened. Maybe they did hear something. Maybe they would place something down and go back to it later and it was moved, and maybe weird shit did happen there, and then they saw an opportunity to capitalize on that. But the originals, and Tony and I talked about this before as well, I would love to see a legitimate Amityville Horror movie about the Defeo murders, excluding the piece of shit sensational one that was released last year. I mean, a legit one done in the realm of Zodiac, David Fincher's Zodiac. Like, you take it that seriously, and you follow through with the police and the investigation and what really happened. And then if you want to, suggest to the audience at the end of the movie, maybe something sensational.
About to say.
Yeah, and maybe something that's kind of cool, right? Because it's part of the story, but you take it seriously because there's enough meat there that you don't even need the sensational shit. You know what I mean? Like, it's creepy. Like, what the fuck? We're talking like Ronald Defeo killed his entire family. That's a theory. He conspired with his sister. What the fuck? And then shoots his sister, so she's not her. That's it. The mob in there. Was there more than meets the eye in terms of reality and ghosts and shit? I mean, there's so much there that you can dive into legitimately. You don't even need the Lutz's story yet, and so that's, I don't know, Tony, like you feel the same way.
Exactly. No, I was just thinking the same thing, that if you did it and did it right in the, like Zodiac type style movie, absolutely. And then if you wanted to bookend it with When You Fade to Black, in whatever it was, 76, George and whatever Lutz moved into the house and experience some unexplained phenomena and leave it at that. You don't have to get into details and just boom, call it a day. Movie over.
Maybe you leave it at the final scene is George and Kathy Lutz looking at the house.
That too. That would be good too, with the real estate agent standing there. And then no dialogue. No dialogue. It just
no dialogue. Yep. Now there's no doubt people would be like, oh, sequel's coming. Well, yeah, that certainly is there for that. But you don't need to do a sequel because you already know their story.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? So it's not like it's certainly set up to do that, but you don't need.
I totally would get Josh Brolin to just cameo that part. Get his hair like his dad's. Totally would do that.
That would be cool. And could you do a sequel? Yes, but you don't need to because, as I said, the story. It's just a nice little thing of showing you what, the movie is, the 1979 Amityville Horror is a good movie. And it's fun to watch. It's creepy. It's eerie. It's moody. It's atmospheric. But because I know, it's, and for those who totally believe it, who buy into it, believe into the official Lutz's story and the Indian burial ground and the seances that they had. That's cool, man. I respect that. I just don't necessarily believe it. I think it's possible that something could have happened, but it's not to the degree that they said it did. I
totally agree. I have nothing but the utmost respect for Ed and Lorraine Warren. They're from Connecticut, same area where I'm from. We knew who they were. I mean, you had to be sleeping under a rock to not know who they were. This is pre-social media. Everybody knew who they were.
Of course.
We knew about the story of the haunting in Connecticut, the real haunting in Connecticut, which, by the way, the real haunting in Connecticut, if you actually look up the house, looks a lot similar like the Amityville house. It's that old historic like farmhouse style. It's not the exact look, but you can see some similarities. The shit they did in the haunting in Connecticut it doesn't look anything like it, and the story is nothing like the real story. My point is with Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Shocking. That's so shocking.
Right? With my point with Ed and Lorraine Warren is I respect them so much, and I respect their fans. I'm a fan of them as well. This is the one case of theirs that I always was like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I was just like, you got me with the Conjuring story in Rhode Island. I'm buying that. Yeah, I buy the Enfield Poltergeist thing. I'm with you there. This shit, I was like, I don't know.
But you know what, though? Like, to be fair, it's entirely possible that, if you believe in what Ed and Lorraine Warren were doing, and if you were somebody that does believe in
criticizing it, I'm not, you know what I mean?
Yeah. But if I don't mean you, I'm talking about the collective you, right?
Yeah.
If you're somebody that believes in them and believes in psychics and mediums or the other, it's and you believe that Ed and Lorraine Warren did pick up something at the Amityville house. Maybe they did, but maybe it had nothing to do with what was going on there. I mean, if you believe that there is something beyond this world, and you are somebody that can tap into that world at will, I'm not saying that you're always there through meditation or whatever the case is, then there's probably a lot of locations where you could experience something, and feel something, or like whatever the case is. Now, I do know that Ed and Lorraine, talked about that what they were experiencing was related to the stuff going on there, but it's difficult to say. The Lutz's story, when you start to peel the layers of the onion away, the Lutz's story does become problematic.
Oh, it totally does.
If you take the Amityville Horror of 1979 as your documentary of the Lutz's story, yeah, I get it. Holy shit, right? But if you look at the real story and you start to do some research, no, there's little things that don't add up. Right. So, but the movie itself is great.
And I think for Ed and Lorraine, you have to remember this is 70s, so there's no social media. There's, getting your name out there was it was guerrilla marketing back in the day. I mean, you had to really hustle to get your name out there. So for them to attach their name to this, I mean, that's free publicity in itself for people to go, oh, well, who are these two people? And they had already done stuff and had stuff already established, books written and whatnot. And I'm sure this also opened up other doors for them to go and investigate other cases as well, too. Once again, they were revered as, they were very much revered by the church and, by the public at that time. They were one of the few people that, maybe very early on in their career, they were maybe scoffed at a little bit, but quickly earned the respect from a lot of people very early on when they were young. And at a time that was way different in our country, when shit like that was not really tolerated and acceptable, they were the exception to the rule. So I'm sure that helped them out a lot, attaching their names to this. But of all of that, I truly believe that was the one case when I'm just like, all right, I think this was a marketing ploy, but that's just my opinion.
Right. Yeah.
There are names out there, and because it led them to other case studies and shit. So
yeah, no, somebody in the chat says, keep going, Tony. Don't let Dave win the conversation. Dave just itching to cut him off.
That's our boy.
Oh, and Tony would still be yapping. I don't understand. What's he saying?
That's our boy Blue.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, whatever. Okay. So, I agree with everything you've just said.
Yeah.
And that's what's so great about, like I said, the movie's really good. And I quite enjoy getting lost in the spectacle of the movie. Sure. But it's the true story, the real true story that I think is really good. You know what I mean? And that's my favorite part of it.
Love to see someone tackle that. The problem is we've had so many bad Amityville sequels, including the one here with the story on the Defeo family, that it's got to be put in the right hands. You know what I mean? It really, really, truly has to be put in the right hands. You could say Fincher. There's so many directors out there that could totally crush this and do a great job with it. Not just him, but capable hands. You know what I mean?
Right. Yes. Oh, Fincher would be great. Yeah. Fincher would be great to tackle something like that. 100%.
Even Gordon Green. You know what I mean? I think Gordon Green would do a good job at Amityville.
Yeah. Not a bad idea. David Gordon Green might do an all right job.
Brothers, yep. Right? Who did Stranger Things? They're creative writers. They know the era pretty well.
They would probably want to sensationalize it up, though.
Think?
Yeah, I think. I mean, look where they come from.
I think they're trying to get away from just doing the sensational stuff like Stranger Things. You know what I mean?
Oh yes, yeah. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see, man. We'll see. Okay, let's move over to Poltergeist, 1982. Tony, tell me.
The last time.
Man, Tony, what are your thoughts on the original Poltergeist from 1982?
It's in my top 10 favorite horror movies of all time. It's one I do watch every year. I just watched it the other night and watched it earlier this year as well, too. It's just one of those old friends that I like coming back to and revisiting once a year that I just enjoy. When you have that one friend that you only see once in a blue moon, but when you see each other, you're like, man, this is a fucking kick-ass time. I am having so much fun. And then you're gone. And then you come back a year later. That's how I feel about Poltergeist. It's just, look, I know the debate with Hooper and Spielberg and all that stuff like that. That aside, it is a fun horror film. From start to finish, from Jo Beth Williams, man, I said this the other night, she is the MILF. She is the pinnacle MILF that I would love to have my hands on. I mean, she's totally proper and Mary Sue to the public, but behind closed door with Craig T, she's lighting up that J and getting her freak on. But yeah, I mean, she she was great in it. Craig T was great in it. Obviously, the late great Heather O'Rourke, just phenomenal as Caroline, and I'm sure we're going to tackle into that a little bit. But I started to say this the other night. The one thing that I really love about Poltergeist, and I sort of miss it because we grew up in this, is the over-the-top technology that they were using in the house and shit, you know what I mean, to do the ghost hunt. Because you got to remember, it was nowhere near the sophistication that we have today. But that's the one thing I miss about the 80s, and what I love about the 80s when I'm looking at the big, camcorder that my grandfather had. Like, everything was just so fucking big. But I loved it, you know what I mean? And these were guys who were, innovating all this technology then, which today has resulted to, us having these little smartphones in our hand.
It literally looked like they were setting up to shoot a television show.
For real. Like, you know what I mean? And they probably had wires all over throughout the house, and here's the thing. There's no way Spielberg would sit there and say, one day all these cameras set up around the house are going to be wireless and we're going to have no wire. Like, your thought process then wasn't even thinking that, to now when you watch Ghost Hunter shows, which I'm not a fan of those, but I do know their setup, and their setup is all wireless and stuff like that. And then in contrast to what you see in Poltergeist, I'm like, oh, God, I miss the 80s, and
exactly
everything just being so big. And but yeah, back to the movie. I mean, it's a fun movie. I mean, it really is a fun fucking movie. I could hear for hours talking about it.
It's a look. This, I mean, it's a classic film, and I love the way this movie opens with the Star Spangled Banner, the U.S. national anthem, and back in the day. Oh, heard an echo again. You have your headphones in or no?
No, we're gambling not doing that.
Oh, you didn't put your headphones in. Oh, you should put your headphones in, because that way I won't hear myself. Oh, I think we'll be fine.
Good right now.
I think we'll be fine. Pop them in. Let's see.
All right. If this shit gets fucked up, guys.
I think we'll be okay. But we'll see.
You still getting feedback? Well, go on. Keep talking. I'll just do my...
So, it opens with the Star Spangled Banner. And, back in the day, for those of you that are not old enough to remember, I mean, back in the day, and the same thing would happen up here in Canada as well, on certain local channels, when it got to really late at night, they would go off the air, and they wouldn't come back on the air until, 6 or 7 o'clock the next morning, and you would have they'd play the national anthem to take you off the air. Well, the opening of Poltergeist from 1982, that is exactly what happens. And at first you don't know, what's going on, and you just hear the national anthem, and then we open up, and you're clearly looking at an old tube TV, which is great. And what I love about this opening is that as soon as the national anthem goes off the air, you hear like a drop in the soundscape, like some sort of drop like that, and that eerie, creepy music, and just the flicker from the snow on the TV was a brilliant, creative decision to cast this mood. I mean, just this eeriness throughout the room, because there's this constant strobe effect from the snow on the TV. And, and then you see the dog going from room to room, and then little Carol Ann, wakes up and comes down the stairs, right? And just the flicker on her face, she's so cute too. And she's coming down the stairs, and she comes up to the TV, and she kneels down. She's like, hello? Okay.
Oh, she plays that brilliantly. Okay. Yeah.
Brilliantly. And just
so
oh my God, it's such a wonderful, one of my favorite openings of any horror movie. It's just so creepy, and just, and it feels so organic. It just feels like that's what not her doing that, but people falling asleep by the TV, this, normal, typical American family, as the saying goes. And just it was such a, I love that. I watched it again for the first time in a few years the other day, and just seeing her, just seeing that opening, I'm like, oh, I love just the excuse to obviously there were more lights set up, you have to do that, but in the movie you're given the impression that the light source is just from the television. And that is so good, man. That is so good. What'd you think of that?
No, I agree. I missed some of that because I had to plug my headphones in. But where I caught you, where you were talking about the beginning, yeah, the opening sequences of showing the shots of the small town and everything. When I found out the other day that this opened up 1 week before E.T., I looked at those June of 82. Poltergeist opened up June 4th of 82. 1 week later, E.T. opened up on the 11th. So I'm talking about Spielberg owning the summer of 82. But when I watched that opening sequence again, I said, man, this looks a lot like E.T. Like the neighborhood looked a lot like E.T. And then when you realize like Spielberg's name was attached to it, and then when you look at the neighborhood in E.T., I'm not saying they were the exact neighborhoods, but certainly probably the same area of California where they made these movies, because the neighborhoods, especially back then, the homes, everything looked identical, and it had that Spielberg-esque feel to it. So when I found that out, I was like, that's right. He, because I always, in my mind, I think Tobe Hooper. I don't think Steven Spielberg when it comes to Poltergeist. But then, you realize afterwards, no, he definitely had a big say in this film, especially when you get to the ending of the movie, because I personally think there's two endings of this film. I think there's the Hooper ending, and then I think there's the Spielberg ending. So we'll get to that in a moment.
Yeah, dude. I watched this movie, like I said, for the first time in a few years, a couple of days ago, and it has Steven Spielberg's DNA all over it. I'm watching from the pacing to the editing to the childlike innocence to the music to the.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm watching this and I'm like, this is a Spielberg movie. This is a Spielberg movie, and there's no. I mean, look, rest in peace, Tobe Hooper.
Absolutely.
And Tobe Hooper, he okay.
He did a lot for the genre. I totally respect Tobe.
But Tobe Hooper, you could argue and say, he was credited as the director. You could say that Poltergeist was his most successful movie. The problem is that he never did anything else. Now, what I mean by anything else, I'm talking about relative to, like when you look at Spielberg, right? And he makes Jaws. You're going to say, think to yourself, now here's a guy that if he doesn't go off and do other great things, it'd be weird. Right? Tobe Hooper didn't do anything else. I mean, he did the Texas Chainsaw, right? And he did Texas Chainsaw 2. And he did other things, Toolbox, Murders. And there are other things, and maybe there are other movies that he did that you like.
Yep.
But you cannot deny that Poltergeist, when you look at the rest of Hooper's filmography, Poltergeist stands out as being an anomaly of almost too good.
Yeah.
Like you look at it, you go, why were you not doing Poltergeist-esque level caliber movies ever again?
Right.
Like how did you achieve that? When you watch them, you go, it's fucking it feels like a Spielberg movie in every sense. The acting, the pacing, the editing, the music, the charm, it just, and when you dive deep into, you do find out that there are a lot of people, including Mr. Spielberg, playing the political cinematic rhetoric game, who comes to Hooper's, defense. He even came to Hooper's defense years ago, and said that no, he directed it, blah blah blah, and I have no doubt that he did, but there are a lot of people, including actors, that have come out over the years and said, including producer Frank Marshall, one of the most successful producers in the history of cinema, husband to Kathleen Kennedy,
right.
Said that, I'm paraphrasing, but he said something like it was Spielberg's ship. Spielberg was there almost every day, and Spielberg is a confident director. He's somebody, and he's a presence. This was Hooper's first studio film, I believe. Spielberg is a veteran by now, and he was almost the elephant in the room, and Hooper maybe just wasn't as confident, wasn't as, and it's his movie, but Spielberg was there. We need to do this. How about this? How about that? And so you read up on it, you realize that, okay, Hooper directed it. Okay. And there's no doubt there's probably Hooper things in there. Sure. But man, does that movie not feel like a Spielberg? I mean, folks in the chat room, when
They're
you
saying
watch
the
the
same
original,
thing.
does it not feel like Spielberg? Come
Oh, yeah.
on.
Well, that's what I was just about to say with the ending. You know, when you look at the ending, you have this moment where, you know, they get Caroline back, right? Everything is good. They're packing up the house. To be honest with you, I honestly think that that's probably Hooper's ending and how he wanted to go, you know, right off into the sunset. Everything's good. The studio looked at it and went, Steven, can we do anything? And Steven looked at them and said, we'll do something epic. And then he throws fucking everything everything but the fucking kitchen sink. They're like, we need some more wind from the wind with mom and the kids. Like, more wind. Keep it coming. I want a big ass giant ghost in front of the door. I want mom's hair looking like she belongs in a Quiet Riot video because Quiet Riot was the thing at the time. You know, and you know, I want I want caskets coming out of the ground and shit. You know, and fucking like that's Spielberg. That's Spielberg ending right there for you. Whereas Hooper probably wanted the nice, you know, first ending that you got, because really Poltergeist does have two endings. And I've always felt like we got Hooper and we got Spielberg merged into one.
Yeah, no, I couldn't have said it better myself, Tony. I mean, it is that level. You know, it feels so, and again, you know, I want to qualify this by saying it doesn't mean that Hooper didn't direct anything. It doesn't mean that he wasn't directing and saying action or cut or telling the actor to do this. But in terms of the overall creative driving force as a producer, the producer does have say over a director in certain instances. So, I mean, you know, man, that movie and you have to question, why wasn't Hooper able to do it again?
Right.
He never did. He never achieved anything close to the success of Poltergeist.
No, Chainsaw would be the closest, but Chainsaw
was
you have
before.
To remember, well, not only before, but you have to remember Chainsaw in 1982 or 81 when they were making this was not the cult status film that it is now. You know what I mean? You're talking a movie that's not even 10 years old at this point. It's about 5 or 6, right, at the time. And yeah, it's popular within the horror family community, but horror really wasn't. And again, you're talking early 81 when they're making this, 82 when it's released. Horror wasn't, it was beginning. Like, you just got Friday the 13th. You just got Halloween 2. So the slasher genre was really beginning to find its stride. So the Texas Chainsaw Massacre wouldn't be where it is now, where it's a cult, you know, film, and it's well liked by many, especially in the horror genre and the fan base. So you're totally fucking spot on with that.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody said here, Salem's Lot, which he did, was great. That's a good point. Salem's Lot was
Salem's
really
Lot
good.
Is a good film.
Is a very good
long,
film, and
but good.
long, yeah, but a good film, and he did do that. But he never achieved anything after Poltergeist, and it's unfortunate because I do think he's a good director. But when you watch, I mean, it doesn't. The cinematic style of Poltergeist, when you compare the rest of Hooper's filmography, doesn't feel like Hooper. Something's wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's...
well, because when you look at Poltergeist and you watch E.T., they feel like very similar movies. In a lot of way. You know what I mean?
They do. And keep in mind as well that I think Spielberg wanted to direct Poltergeist. Let's not forget, it's his story, and he helped write the screenplay. And the only reason why I think he didn't direct it was because of the director's strike.
Making E.T.
Well, that too, but also because of the strike that was looming, and Hooper stepped in, but Spielberg felt like he was almost like, you know, overzealous, like he's going to try and get in there and, you know, because he was so excited about this movie that he reluctantly, I think, even though he might not have said it outrightly, internally, he probably was like, damn, I really want to do that one myself. All right, I'll get somebody else to do it. But deep down inside, I think he really wanted to do it, which is why his DNA is all over it, you know, in some regards. But great movie. Like, some of my favorite, well, you know, we talked about the opening. I love...
Well, it's got one of the most iconic lines in horror cinema history with They're
Tony.
Here.
Say
They're here.
Say it. No. Say it like little Carol Ann, Tony.
They're here. I mean, it really is. You know, when you think about even, I would say horror, I would say cinema in general, You know, even though, yes, horror is the category of the movie in, that is one of the most iconic lines, because people like, you know, my dad, who doesn't watch fucking horror movies, he would know the reference as soon as I said Poltergeist. You know what I mean? Like, people like that, they know that line, even if they're not a fan of the genre or don't watch it. It's just such that, and what's her name there that says, "This house is clean."
Yes,
you know
that's
what I
right.
mean?
That's right. That's
what
right.
was her name? Starts with a T in the movie.
Oh yeah.
Tangier. I want to say Tangier.
Yeah. Tangina. Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. For some reason, I'm blanking on that. The chat room will let us know. You'll see a bunch of her names suddenly in the chat room.
They'll get me in the comments too for screwing up the name.
Yeah. Well, no, the influence was so great. I remember in the mid 90s, my buddy Bruce and I, when we were still in high school, we wrote a screenplay and made a short amateur film called They're Coming. And we got They're Coming from They're Here, right? And I thought They're Coming was a creepy title. Who's coming? Who's they,
God,
right?
I
thought
it was the perfect subtitle for the sequel.
Yeah.
I mean, it really would have.
Yeah. Well, didn't she say something else in the sequel? What was
something similar to that?
They're back.
They're back or something like that.
Yeah. But no, iconic line, and I love the slow burn of Poltergeist. What a shock! Dave likes the slow burn, but I like how, and again, this is very Spielberg-like. We get we get familiar with this family. Right. And we get to know this family outside of anything supernatural happening, very much like what James Wan did with The Conjuring. When you can utilize a slow burn in a horror movie and get us to care about the characters, that is only going to elevate the authenticity and the credibility of your horror movie to a new level, because it feels more real that way. And I love that. And I love again, there's nothing, well, it does get sensational, but I love that it's a slow burn to the sensational. It's not sensational right out of the gate. You know, like, I love the whole idea of, you know, I love the scene, and it doesn't, how do you think that? I'm trying to rack my brain on how they did that. Whether it was something inserted in. It had to, because they didn't cut it when she pushes the chairs all in, goes, puts something under the counter, comes back, and all the chairs are stacked on top of each other.
Yeah.
But it's not a cut.
No, it's supposed to come across like it's supposed to come across as a one shot. I think there is a cut.
You think there's a cut?
Well, no, because if you remember, because you have to pan back, right? So in that pan back, when you have to pan back to Mom and Caroline talking to each other, and then Carol Ann, I'm sorry, Carol Ann are talking to each other, and then there's the payoff. You see the chairs. I think that if you watch it closely and play it in slow motion, I think there's a cut there, but it's intended, because it's so fluid, to look like one shot. Otherwise, your guess is fucking as good as mine, because, I mean, of course you can cut out sound, you know, of them putting it on there, but you're going to have all that shit pretty much pre-glued, pre-taped together, and then a crew of people coming on, put it off, and get out of the shot real fast.
Yeah, there's not enough time. It's either the way you said it, or it's, dare I say it, even a map painting. And what I mean by that is not that specifically, I got you. But it's because if you watch the mother and Carol Ann, they walk around it. Now, it works for the character because they have to be stunned and shocked by it. They don't want to get too close to this thing. Oh my God, weird and creepy, right? So they walk kind of around it. They might be looking at nothing. And even though it's 1982, this technology did exist. They may have spliced another shot in there to be able to, like, almost composite over it. That's entirely possible. They may have done, unless there's a documentary that explains how they did that. I'll have to, or you know what? I might be able to look it up online. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe it's none of what we're saying. Maybe it's something completely different. But that's entirely possible as well.
Just goes to show you how good they were with practical back in the day. Yeah,
it was fantastic. It was really, really, really well done. So love that. And love how that scene transpires, how the chair goes across the floor. Craig T. Nelson's character comes home, he's tired. It's like, no, come in here. I want to show you something. It's because that's almost like what you would do. I got to show you this. And I love when she takes off, his sunglasses and shit, and then he's just like, I don't want to have anything to do with it.
Yeah.
You know, I love that. What other scenes really get you?
Oh man, I mean the whole movie. I mean it's the horror movie at the. I mean it's funny because you had a kids movie and a horror movie playing simultaneously with Spielberg's name attached to it. So Spielberg was like, okay, kids go see this, teens go see this, and they're both fun adventure movies. I mean Poltergeist really is. It's an adventure movie, really, with this family that, like you said, the way the setup of, you see the opening scenes with Craig T. Nelson in the room with his buddies watching, Sunday football game, and you're seeing the kids interact with each other, and
it feels like a real family.
Feels like a real family, or feels like a real. So you're invested, and now you're going along with this adventure. Once the weird shit starts to happen, I always loved the sarcastic scene there where the ghost hunters show up, to talk about the house and with them and whatnot, and then they talk about how he recorded this thing on a time lapse over like 7 hours, and and then they open up the fucking door and they're like everything's fucking going, and I love the fucking creepiness of the record spinning with the not an easel. I'm thinking it's an easel. What's that called?
No, I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm thinking of?
Yep.
Yeah. And it's just spinning on it, but it's spinning it in that weird kind of distorted melody that adds to the creep factor to that scene. And again, all practical. I mean, there's no CGI with this, and that's or CGI for that time, which was pretty much nothing in comparison to what it is today. And it still holds up. Yeah, I mean, it looks 1980s, but it's just for its time. I'm sure if you were a teenager, you were probably like, wow, this is fucking cool watching it for the first time.
But that's the charm of it, right? Like that's why George Lucas should never have gone into the original trilogy and tampered with anything, because that special edition doesn't hold up very well today.
No.
And when you watch especially the first film from 1977, when you watch the special edition, it's you have all this 1997 CGI against the backdrop of 1977 practical effects. It looks awful.
Ridiculous.
It looks awful. And that Jabba the Hutt scene is atrocious. Now, in 1997, when I was 18, or when we were 18, we were like, oh, that's kind of cool. Well, looking at it now, it looks like it has not dated very well at all. The best one out of the changes was Empire. But anyway, so in terms of, it's still kind of holding up. But yeah, somebody in the chat here said, where was it? Yes, I don't know if I'm going to say this right. Eshni, am I saying that right? If you look closely, she's really saying they're all here. Very good catch, because when I watched this a couple of days ago, she does go, you do see her mouth go, but obviously in post-production, they decided to change it to they're here.
And rather than reshooting the scene.
Which, you know what, there obviously there's logistics around that, and
especially with a kid.
Especially with the kid, and who knows how close they were to release date, and whether or not the studio wanted to put up the money.
It's an error in charm that I'm like, I can accept. You know what I mean? It's not one that I like go, because it's just like, all right, we all get it, and it's like, stay. You know what I mean?
Right. Yep. But that goes to show you, though, again, that's a little window into the filmmaking process. That obviously, let's have, okay, now say they're all here. Say they're here, they're all here. Whatever it is. I mean, well, to be fair, maybe they never got her to say they're all here. And that's why they just had to not, because you would assume that if they did shoot it a couple of, different ways, which they should have done, which is why you do that, then they would have just used the take. Yeah, exactly. They would have just used the take of her saying they're here, unless the take of her saying they're here, Toby and Spielberg were like, I just don't like the way she looks. I just don't like the way I just don't like her eyes there.
Audio could have been bad because her that could have been an ADR. You know what I mean? She could have done that in post, where maybe when she says they're all here, it didn't sound right. So maybe they had an ADR session with her and say, hey, can you say they're here? And we'll do our best to splice it.
100%. You're bang on with that. Yes, exactly. But great classic line nonetheless. And the movie is just the way it's so Spielberg. The whimsy of the movie, and it's scary, but it's scary in that Spielberg way. You know what I mean?
Fun adventure way.
Fun adventure way, and it's really well done. And of course, poor Dana. I mean, I forget her real name now, but she actually died in 1982, like really died. And of course, I know there's the sister. She was strangled by her ex-boyfriend on their driveway. And she was only, 22 years old or whatever it was. I don't know.
Let me tell you, she looked good. She had a nice little rump on her when she comes running out of the house and the wind is blowing and she's wearing that T-shirt. Come on, dudes. I know you're all looking at it because I'm fucking looking at it. Like, girl had a nice little booty on her. And now, of course, unfortunately, what happened with her,
there's the legend of there's the legend of the Poltergeist curse. I don't buy into it. Because the reason why I don't is because were there some unusual things that happened? Yes. I mean, even Carol Ann died before Poltergeist 3, I think, came out, which was unfortunate. The woman
she was close to finishing it, right? I think
she was close. They used a couple of body doubles to finish it.
Yeah.
The girl that played Dana in the original obviously was murdered.
Right.
And there's some other weird things that happened on set. But in order for this to have legitimacy, you would then have to look at all the movies in history that were not supernatural films that had weird shit happen.
Yeah.
Right. You'd have to say, there's been a lot of people that died on set or somebody did, or there's been weird people that, so it's just, no, I don't think there's any credence to it. It makes for a good marketing push, makes for a good story, but I don't think there's any legitimacy. And I'm somebody that believes that there could be something more, and there's reasons
it might have been the curse of the Poltergeist doc that I saw, and the production people on there. I think the guy said it best was you have to remember back in the day they're making movies like this anywhere between 3 to 6 to 9 months, okay, and when you're on a project that long, shit's gonna fucking happen. People are gonna pass away, so it's just like life goes on. Even though you're making a movie, real life continues to happen. And, nobody can sit there and predict, what happened with Dana, the girl who played Dana, and her boyfriend flipping out and doing nobody. I mean, that's not a curse. That's just a dude fucking off his rocks and decides to kill his girlfriend one night. It has nothing to do with the movie. Heather O'Rourke, her death.
Same thing.
There was something internally wrong with her, right? She had an illness that either they could have caught and saved her or didn't catch her in time, that type of thing. I know The Exorcist, had, weird shit on set. And again, a movie like that, you're on production for 6 to 9 months. Shit's gonna fucking happen. You know what I mean?
It is. And when you are making a movie with that subject matter, your objective senses, then you pay more attention to those weird things. If you're on a Star Wars set, or if you're making a drama about, I don't know, an autistic boy that have nothing to do with supernatural, and weird shit can happen, and you don't automatically think, well, this is weird, because it's not the subject matter of the set, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I say that in order for there to be credibility to a poltergeist curse or an exorcist curse, you would have to be able to say that this rarely ever happens on any other, and only happens on supernatural film sets, which is totally not true.
Yeah.
So it's a good story. It is creepy. It's eerie. It's kind of interesting, but I don't think there's anything supernatural about it at all. But the movie is great and
holds up to this day.
I love the fact that when it ends, it doesn't really end. Love that there's just that extra, and with what's her face there, the mom running down
Williams,
when she's running down the hall, but it's getting longer and longer and longer. That's one of the most classic shots of that entire film. Love it. Love that. That's really great. And then of course, they eventually, and when you look at,
I'm sure, especially when she gets close to the door, I'm sure Spielberg was like, can we make that ghost a little bigger? Okay. No, can we make it a little bit bigger? Okay. Can we make it a little bit dude, Steven, how much big? I want it to be gigantic, and I want a big ass face coming right at her. I want her hair blowing in the wind.
Yep. Yes. See, you get it.
Spielberg and over the topness, man. That's what you gotta love about him.
But it was so good. I love that, and because you knew, like when it got to that point, you almost knew there was something else because the movie's lingering. It's like, why aren't the credits rolling yet? What's going on here, right?
They're packing up, but they're not quite totally out. You know what I mean? So it was a cool execution of the false ending. That's very hard to do in a movie, and to keep the audience still interested to want to watch more. Yeah. That's the key thing, because you can have your audience checked out the moment they save Carol Ann and get her back and they're packing up. Your audience could be like, oh, okay, well, this is a nice, good ending. And then you're like, oh, well, fuck.
That's right. Know? Now, Tony, you're familiar with probably a little more than I am actually on the two endings. Tell us why, what those two endings are and how you feel about them both.
Well, I mentioned this earlier. I feel like you're getting the Hooper and Spielberg ending. Hooper, you look at Chainsaw. Hooper and Chainsaw, it just ends. It's Leatherface out there twirling the saw around, and Sally is riding off in the truck screaming at the top of her lungs. It just ends. That's it. Spielberg, when you look at his endings and you look at Jaws, okay, it's the epic showdown between Brody and Jaws at the end, and die, you son of a, or whatever the line is, you son of a
smile, you son of a bitch.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's dramatic, it's not just a one note and, it's something big. Right. And that's just Spielberg in general. When you look at Spielberg's creative decisions, he likes to throw everything in but the kitchen sink. And Hooper, I think, is just more very, all right, let's just get to the ending. And I just think we're getting two creatives, giving us two versions of their ending. You're getting the soft ending where, mom comes back going into, wherever they go into. And I'm glad they never show us that because I don't need to see it. You just leave it up to your imagination, and then they save Carol Ann and, everybody's happy and whatnot. And then, then the shit really fucking goes down. And the cool thing about I call the Spielberg ending versus the Hooper ending, even up until that point, you hadn't seen a whole hell of a lot. Yeah, you had that one shot where Craig T. Nelson's holding the rope and you see the big giant ghost face, just the head, not the body one that the mom sees later, but just the head. It pops out. That was a big moment. You see the lights. What I mean by lights is that was another gag that they did where you see people walking down the stairs and they're watching it on the playback and you see that it's actually people. That's awesome. So the gags throughout Poltergeist leading up to that big payoff was very subtle. When you really look at the movie as a whole, it was just very little things that were happening throughout the film. So when that payoff came and Spielberg threw everything in but the kitchen sink, it kind of fit. You know what I mean? It's like, we need more bodies in that pool. I want more. I want caskets to come out of the fucking doorway entry and shit. You know what I mean? But it fits, because if you had gotten a lot of that already up until that point, I think people would have been like, okay, so we're repeating this. But because you didn't and you got it all there, I think that's why it works. And then the house, collapses in, right?
Yeah, it all collapses down and which is really cool. And then I love the ending when they go to the motel and they go in and they shut the door, and then Craig T. Nelson's character opens it and pushes the TV out.
That was great.
And then it just pulls back and you hear, the theme. Another great theme. La, 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 la. I can't hum it now, but you know the Poltergeist theme. And sure. So it's a classic film and one that is fun to watch, and obviously didn't need a sequel, but it did, and had two. There's the remake as well, which was and the remake's unfortunate because I love the actor in the remake. What's his name?
The actor's good. It's just, again, it's like, what's his name who did Freddy in the remake? You could have a great actor but a shitty fucking movie.
Yeah, and that was a piece of garbage movie. No, Poltergeist is a great film, and
part 2 is okay. I don't mind
part
the sequel.
Part 2's not bad.
Yeah, because it's the whole family minus, it's the whole family, meaning even though, yes, you had to replace an actress because of what happened, which is out of their control, but it's still the whole family. You know what I mean? Right. And it's a decent sequel. It's an okay sequel.
Yeah.
It's like Jaws 2. That's really what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not like the original,
in some ways,
but it holds its own. You know, the third is just unfortunately as bad in it. But I don't like to say anything negative about the third simply because of what happened to Heather. You know what I mean? And I'd stay away from that because it's just unfortunate because she was such a young girl, and you know, would have loved to have seen what she could have brought to the table in the genre that I'm sure she would have continued to work in for many years to come.
Right. And I remember as a kid watching the sequel, and I loved the scene with Kane, the old man walking across
he was great.
And then he walks up and he's like, hello, you know, and he does all that or whatever, and does
he sing that song? And we'll gather at the river, the beautiful, beautiful river.
I think
something like that.
It was something like, and it was raining on top.
Yeah,
but it was like a sunshine,
it's like an old Southern rhyme song or whatever.
It was really he was great, and
that's what did make that movie good was his character.
He was good, yes, because he was like the embodiment of the human form.
Yeah.
You know, and so that was really creepy. And of course Poltergeist 3, yeah, I mean it's you know, the family's not there, and she goes to, and it takes place in this skyscraper, and there's a certain charm about it, but it's nowhere near as good as the second one, let alone the first one. So I mean, classic movie, and you know, I love it. I mean, just everything I love like the effects are great. I love when the guy goes into the bathroom and he starts peeling his face.
Him off. Man. And you know you love it. You know it's a dummy. You know it's early 80s dummy. You know what I mean? You could almost get a Tom Savini feel for that. You know what I mean? That scene.
Yes.
And it's cool. It Poltergeist, like I said here a few moments ago, it's a good friend to come back to and visit every once a year or whatnot and watch. You know, it's always in my rotation for every October when it's this time of year, horror movie month and whatnot. I love coming back to it and watching it.
I agree, and I love it looks so good. The way he's just peeling away and he's going like this and shit. I just love it. Fucking love it. All right, let's jump over to the chat room.
See, the chat room got me. It's God is in his holy temple. That is the song. So, okay.
I'd probably know it to hear it.
Yeah.
But I can't, I'm not a very religious person, obviously, at all, so I don't know it off the top of my head, but certainly if I heard it, I would
for sure.
I would hear it. All right, jump into the chat room. This is your opportunity to ask Tony and I any fucking thing you want to ask. It's
away.
Your chance. Ask away, ladies and gentlemen, ladies and germs, ladies and gents. What are some questions you want to ask? Blu-ray Addict says, have you guys seen the TV show Masters of Horror? I have not. Tony?
Wasn't that a movie, not a TV show? Wasn't that like didn't like they do like or maybe it was a TV series that I'm thinking of, and they talked to all the iconic directors like Wes Craven and Carpenter. Wasn't that called Masters of Horror or something like that?
Yeah, well, there's probably a lot of things that are that Masters of Horror is a term that's tossed around.
That's the thing that I saw where they're talking to like popular directors and shit, and I think even Rob Zombie's in it, and I think Eli Roth is in it. You know, and I think it's a combination of a lot of directors.
I haven't seen it.
That's the one I'm thinking of. I don't know if that's the one they're referencing.
Okay. Brandon Barry, super chat. Thank you, Brandon. Says, Dave and Tony, would you stay in Amityville Horror House? Yes, I would.
Yeah, I've been to the house. I lived like an hour from the house. They changed the address, the physical number, because, you know, so many people were showing up to the house. And then the owner tried to get clever and changed out the windows as well, too. But I mean, true horror fans are going to know, like, they know the house. And, you know, I mean, you can change a number on a house, but the neighbor's house is still going to stay the same. So you just kind of do simple deductible that your odd and even numbers are on, you know, whatever side of the road. And you're like, oh, okay, so this is the original address of it. And I mean, it's cool. You know, what's funny, what is if you see the house, you can even Google Earth it as well, too. If you see the house, the projection of what they say the house is to the actual boathouse, it's not that far. It's actually a lot closer in real life. I mean, they're really like right on the fucking water.
Yeah,
they're in New York, and I mean, but it's a quaint little, you know, old farmhouse cottage-like style. And the owner that lived in it after the Lutzes, they lived in it for a couple decades before it sold here not too long ago. I want to say in the last 10 to 15 years it sold. And it sold for almost like $1 million, I think was what they sold, close to $1 million. And they said nothing ever happened, So I think that's one of those things where I would have literally no problem sleeping in that house because my gut feeling is nothing's going to happen to me.
Yeah. And also too, I forgot to mention this when we were talking about the Amityville Horror, but where the movie was shot, the 1979 film, was not shot at the Amityville Horror house. It was shot somewhere else in a similar location with a house that looked similar, and I believe they created the famous windows for the movie and whatnot because they couldn't get permission to actually shoot at the house. So they did a hell of a job because it looks a lot like the area. Like you totally believe that this could be the same area and the same house. So pretty cool stuff.
Well, one of our viewers sent this to us regarding E.T. I'm guessing this is regarding E.T. and Poltergeist. The opening neighborhood shots were not filmed in Simi Valley. These shots were filmed in so he's saying that they were filmed in Agora Hills. So confirming that both E.T. and Poltergeist, I'm guessing that's what he's sending this. I don't want to say if that's right or wrong. If that's what I'm thinking, what you're sending me is
they look very similar. That's for sure.
I mean, it may not be the same neighborhood, but it definitely looks like the same. Because I mean, homes were like today. Neighborhoods are built the same house. Like I live in a neighborhood where all the houses look pretty much identical to each other. So like it's no different than back then. But especially with California and those style roofs and shit like that, and you see a lot of that in E.T. as well too. That's what I meant by either it was filmed in the same neighborhood or same type of neighborhood.
Yeah, well, that's what. Yeah, and that's what I took you to mean. When people say it looks the same, they're not necessarily saying it is literally the same location, but just in terms of it looks the same. It looks like the same type of neighborhood, the same type of
like for example, when Craig T. Nelson's driving his little the family truckster in the opening for those who know that reference, kudos. Who's driving the truckster in the opening credits, and it's going across this big open field park. Like I almost feel like that looks like the park that you see Elliot meet the boys, where him and his brother steal E.T.
Right.
It looks has a similar park type feel to it. Fight vibe, exactly.
Right, exactly. Yeah, no, I got you. Okay, let's see here. The Film Addict says, favorite Family Guy character. My favorite is Joe and Herbert. Hey, muscly arms. My favorite would be Peter. He's my favorite character for sure.
Peter, because I'm like him. I have no fucking filter. I am that guy. Like when Seth MacFarlane talks about, he bases it on the guy that in the neighborhood who has no filter that everybody knows. Guilty. that is fucking me.
Yeah, Peter's my favorite, probably followed by
Stu. I gotta say Stewie, man.
That or Quagmire. Yeah.
Quagmire's giggity gut, giggity gut.
Yeah. Giggity giggity. Hey, Peter. What's going on, Peter? All right.
Let's see. PC Pierce sends in super chat. Platoon or Apocalypse Now?
Both really good movies. Both have really a Sheen in it, right?
Both movies I haven't seen in a long time.
Am I right? Both have a Sheen in it. Charlie Sheen's in Platoon, and his dad's in Apocalypse.
I think you're right. I would probably go. Instinctively, I want to say Apocalypse Now, but I haven't seen either in a while, so I'd have to brush up on that.
My heart wants to say Platoon because I've seen that more. Apocalypse Now is obviously
Well, Apocalypse Now is
a great movie. I mean, it's like there's nothing bad I can say about it, but I would say my heart leans a little bit more towards Platoon. Yeah. It's a good question, though. But both are great movies. That's a tough one.
Yeah. Zach Gaxiola says, thoughts on the 2005 adaptation of War of the Worlds starring Tom Cruise. I actually like that movie.
Same here.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. I know it's not really critically reviewed or critically raved, but I'm cool with that.
Say what you want about Tom Cruise, but, he's totally believable in most roles that he's in. Yeah. He's a very good actor.
He is the true definition of balls to the wall and not half-assed. I mean, he's hanging from a fucking plane. You know, I mean, like, yeah, forget it. It doesn't get any bigger than that shit.
No, it doesn't. Your balls don't get any bigger than that.
No, the dude has got, like, that is the definition of balls of steel.
His testicles are the size of this bedroom. I'm just telling you. Let's see.
iGirl, do you guys like Amityville remake with Ryan Reynolds? You know, it's all right. I don't hate it. Yeah. Of all in the remake era of, you know, films, when you go back to thinking like when it really became popular again, like with Psycho with Vince Vaughn, and it kind of catapulted from there where everything began on that cycle, because shortly after that you got Chainsaw, and then you got the Amityville, and you got Halloween and all that stuff like that. I'm not saying remakes weren't being done before that. I'm just saying it really it got an extra shot in the arm after Psycho was remade with Vince Vaughn. And of all the films that have been remade, I own it. It's one that, you know, it's a mood. If I'm in the mood to watch it, I'll pop it in and watch it. And I don't have any beefs with it. It is one of the better remade movies out there. So I know there's some people who don't like it, but other than the fact that Reynolds is fucking jacked, I wish I could have that physique.
Yeah,
Shit.
He's jacked in that movie.
Yeah.
He is jacked. Yeah, I'm not a big, to no surprise, I'm not a big fan of it. I you know, like Tony said, it came out in that time where there was a lot of horror movies being made and remade, and I mean, it's watchable, but I much prefer the original. It's much better. The original is much better. Super chat from Anthony T. Thank you, Anthony. Says, I'm having a scary movie night. Can you give me 3 recommendations besides Halloween, Elm Street, or Friday the 13th? Looking to surprise guest. Okay, well, first of all, my question to you, Anthony, is okay, well, I'm just going to assume that your guest is into horror movies. So let me see. 3 movies, Tony. 3 movies.
1, The Exorcist.
Exorcist. Oh, well, wait a minute. I need to know. It's true. I need to know, but is your guest, are they cool with older horror, or are they more in line with,
true.
Do you know what I mean?
Old or new?
Old or new.
Or you can do a little both. You can do The Exorcist and The Conjuring. Old and new.
That's true. Exorcist and The Conjuring, followed by, I don't know, Insidious maybe? Or
Insidious, something in the happy middle, maybe something in the 80s and 90s.
Yep.
I watched Silence not too long ago.
That's good.
That's a good one. You know, just it depends on your guest. Dave is right. It depends on your guest's taste. That is big.
Yeah, like I mean, I could even say, what about Rear Window and Psycho? But that might be like for your guest. If your guest is older, like 20,
Dracula, you know, and Frankenstein and Wolfman. You know, I mean, so I guess it depends on, like Dave said, your guest.
Mm-hmm. It does, but if they're more of a modern fan, like maybe they're a bit younger of a person, then I would say, you know, The Conjuring, Insidious, something in there. The first Ring, The Ring from 2002 is good as well. But if you want to go a bit older, I would say, you know, Black Christmas, Texas Chainsaw, Exorcist, Rear Window. I mean, there's a lot to choose from there.
Absolutely, Robert, I'm not going to try to pronounce your last name. How about that? Most surprising classic movie not to have a sequel. He says E.T. I'm glad they don't have a sequel to E.T. because E.T. doesn't need a sequel.
They almost made one.
I know. I've heard the horror version of E.T. I am glad they did not do that. That would have ruined my childhood forever. Goonies, I'm glad that has sort of become shelved again. I think that's one that doesn't need to be remade. I'm hearing grumblings again about Princess Bride, although Princess Bride is falling into a possible reboot, remake, sequel type thing that they're not coming out clean with it. I hope they don't do that. But you know, I'm with Dave when it comes to classic films not needing sequels. You know, I mean, they just like the ones that we just mentioned here. You know, Princess Bride, Goonies. Those E.T. Those 3 films don't warrant a sequel. The adventure's done, and you know E.T.'s gone off back home with his family, and Elliot's gonna grow up and, you know, whatever, and you don't need to. I don't need to see that part of Elliot's life. You know, I got everything I needed from Elliot's journey in E.T. from start to finish of that film. And I don't give a fuck what anybody says and how hard you are. Every time that fucking music comes on and that fucking thing starts to raise up, that fucking throat of mine starts to get all choked up and shit. Because this is fucking epic, man. That fucking John Williams score knows how to hit you right here.
No, dude, it does for me too. I watched E.T. Not too long ago with my girlfriend because she had never seen it. So, and, or maybe not in years or something. So we watched it, and when it got to that point, you know, I'll be right here.
Right.
Or what? I'm just like, oh man, come on, fight it, fight it, fight it. You're a man. You're a man. You can do it. You can do it. It's great.
I get it.
No, E.T. Look,
it ruins that whole everything we just said right now. It ruins it if you do a sequel.
Yeah, well, yes, and also listen, my outlook on sequels is this: is there more to the story to tell, or are we making a sequel to tell more?
Right.
Now, obviously, if we go into the business side of show business, it's business. But from the artist side, from the creative side, am I making a sequel because there was just so much I wanted to tell and I couldn't, and I have so much I want to tell? Or are we making a sequel to just tell more? But there's different types of sequels as well, right? You can look at, there's Indiana Jones, but they tell different stories, right? We're talking about sequels that carry an arc. E.T. 2 wouldn't be telling a different story. It would likely have been the continuation of Elliot and E.T. Well, is there more to tell? And if there's not more to tell, don't tell it. And you completed your arc. You completed the circle, the message, the moral of the story, the moral of E.T., the moral about kindness and humans and extraterrestrial life and, you know, all the shit that's in there was told.
Yeah.
There's no more to tell.
Nope.
So I agree. I would agree with E.T. I agree with everything Tony said. The Goonies. You know. Oh Jesus. I'd have to think hard. But
again, there's movies that weren't sequels, and then there's movies that you leave it alone. There's no need for it. Forrest Gump. Someone mentioned Forrest Gump. Absolutely. Again, and there's no need to go back. Why?
There isn't. Sorry, dude. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say you're absolutely right. And there is a sequel to Forrest Gump, I believe. It's a book, isn't it? Yeah, I think there's a book. Yeah, okay. and they were gonna. That was another one they were thinking about doing. I mean, even Back to the Future didn't need a sequel.
No,
it didn't. I mean, I suspect Zemeckis had more to tell because he was like, hey, if we can go back, we can go forward.
I gotta tell you, it's funny that you brought that up because on my run today, I've been listening to a lot of Crispin. He's been out doing the tour right now because his new movie, Lucky Day, which looks fucking amazing. I haven't seen it yet, but he was on Michael Rosenbaum's podcast and learning more about what fucking Bob Gale did to him in the Back to the Future thing. I gotta tell you, man, it makes me look at 2 and 3 a little bit different because of how they dicked him over. Yeah, I don't know. Does it do that to you a little bit?
No, because I for some reason I have a very strong ability to separate life from art, and so it doesn't affect me in that way. But I do know the story you're talking about, and it certainly, it was a dick move.
Meaning, like when I see George on screen in the sequels, which you don't really see him in 3, right?
No, not at all.
But in 2, it's like, I don't know. When I see it now, it's like, fuck, man. Why would they do that? You know.
Well, there's George on screen, but there's and then there's far away shots of actually Crispin from Back to the Future 1.
Right,
exactly.
Yeah.
But in the future one, that's not really him.
No.
And there's
it's unfortunate because you know he's that one piece of the puzzle when they get together and do these reunions, and he's not there, and it sucks. And I totally support why he doesn't. I get it, and I absolutely back him up on that. But yeah, it's funny you brought. We'll have to do a Back to the Future night here one.
Yeah, that I'm down. I'm totally down. Anthony T. Super Chat. Thanks, Anthony. Says, speaking of sentimental movies, what movies made you cry? Not because they were awful, but emotional. Well,
there's a few that get to me.
Funny enough, I have never cried while watching a movie. But
you get the lump in the throat like what I'm talking about?
I've been there's been a few movies that have done that. E.T. is one.
Yep.
The Forrest Gump is another.
Okay.
The very first time, not necessarily now, but the first time I watched Forrest Gump, when Jenny died and he's there at the grave talking to Jenny, I remember going, man, it was such a powerful performance. I mean, he was so brilliant in that movie. And I was just, I don't know what I was going through because it came out in 1994. We were, 15. So I don't know what I was going through as a teenager at that time, but man, it affected me. And I gotta say, funny enough, The Force Awakens. Now, hear me out before you go. The Force Awakens.
My eyes just were like, where is he going with this?
No, hear me out. It was the trailer, the Chewie We're Home trailer.
Oh, okay. You're talking about the trailer. Okay.
Right, the emotional, because of the nostalgia and see, I'm somebody that has always wanted them to go forward. I remember in 1997, when it was announced that George Lucas was going backwards to tell how Darth Vader, I was one of the only people, I was like, I don't give a fuck about that. Yeah. I mean, it's Star Wars, I'll watch it. I don't give a shit about how Darth Vader became Darth Vader. I'm emotionally attached to these characters you've established. I want to know what happened next.
Yeah.
I want to know what happened next. And I've been clamoring for that. So here it is, Harrison Ford, and arguably, one of his most famous iconic roles. Harrison Ford's my favorite actor of all time. Not saying he's the best actor. He's my favorite actor. And he comes through the doors, Chewie, we're home. And I just remember thinking, my eyes watered up, a little bit of a lump, didn't cry, but it was that, holy shit, like, that's a fucking amazing. I never thought I would ever see that again. Yeah. That's unbelievable. The little fucking 8-year-old is going wild inside, dancing around. It really affected me. So really cool. But there's never been a movie that has that tears have actually come down my face. At least not yet. What about you, Tom?
Never tears, but lumps in the throat. Kind of, felt like I got punched in the stomach. There's 3 films that have done that to me. E.T. being one. The ending of Terminator 2: Judgment Day. When he fucking does the thumbs up, I'm like, oh man, fuck you, James Cameron. That's literally what I'm like, dude. Why are you doing this to me? It's like, no.
Yeah.
That's because the music's playing and whatnot. That was pretty good. But this one's funny because I actually, because I remember seeing this. This was back in junior high. And
it's the Care Bears movie, right?
Yeah, it's the Care Bears movie. No, but I remember the first thing I said to my junior high school girlfriend at the time. I said, "Damn it, you were right. I actually enjoyed this because I thought I was gonna fucking hate it." Was Patrick Swayze's movie Ghost with Demi Moore, and when she says ditto to him, when he says I love you to her, and she says ditto to him.
And then the tear comes down her face.
Yeah, I'm like, motherfucker, fuck you, Swayze, man. God damn you, you're the man. Fucking Roadhouse, I love that movie. That's a guilty pleasure of mine.
Roadhouse.
Roadhouse is such a guilty pleasure of mine. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. But yeah, that scene between him and Demi Moore, because the build-up throughout the whole movie is that she says I love you to him, and he says ditto to her. And when it reverses and then he goes off, I'm like, and I remember, I vividly remember turning over, I'm like, fuck you. Because I liked it. You know what I mean? Like, I thought I was going to hate it, and I was like, fuck you, man.
So you didn't cry, but you
I
got
didn't cry,
close.
but I was like, yeah, it just kind of hit me. Yeah. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, that's a good one. I forgot about Ghost. That I don't know if it would get me now, but
that's the order. It would be E.T. still gets me to this day. Fucking T2 definitely still gets me to this day. Ghost, not as much because I've seen it enough. I know what's coming, but I'm thinking like initially what got to me, those 3 films would probably be it. But the ones that still to this day that hold up, E.T. and Terminator 2.
Really cool. Really cool. Super chat from the Film Addict. Thank you, Film Addict. If you could visit one haunted place, where would you go? I personally visited Eastern State Penitentiary in Philly a couple years ago and saw Al Capone's old cell, the cell before he went to Alcatraz.
Blu-ray Addict, I agree. Point Break with Keanu and Patrick is another great Swayze film. I like Swayze. I miss him. It's unfortunate what happened, but yeah, that's another good flick. But go ahead. What were you saying? What place you went to?
The
haunted place? Yeah.
I was trying to think of one.
Sally Mae House for me would be the one that's the top of my list, because there's been a lot of stories documented and reported, facts, not bullshit stories. I mean, it's literally warded off. You can't get in there. They will not let you in there. And because of that alone, I want to go in there.
Do you know Tony's going to love my answer. He's going to love my
Is
answer.
it the one that you're gonna avoid the answer? That's why.
No.
Oh, okay.
No. You're going to love my answer because you are, you know a lot about this place. But unfortunately, it's a place that we can't access. And I wish we could access it because it would be really amazing to go to.
Let me try to guess. Not the Perrin farmhouse in Rhode Island, because I've been there several times.
And it's
hold on. Let me think. Hold on.
Okay.
So it's a place that I know that we can't get access to.
Nobody on the planet can.
Okay. Let me ask one hint. Is it on the planet?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay.
I
was going to start thinking
it's
like
in Andromeda.
I was going to start thinking like, okay, how far out are we going with this? All right, so it's on the planet and nobody on the planet can get to Titanic?
Yes.
The Titanic. That would be an interesting
not because it was possessed or anything, but the amount of people that died there.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be cool if that would be really interesting? Walking through those decrepit walls and room. Of course, now there's nothing. I mean, sadly, it's really on the verge of kind of just crumbling away now. I saw an article on that.
Yeah.
But imagine like 20 years ago, or when it first, that would be really cool. Titanic would be really cool.
Yeah,
I don't know.
You physically could not get there because of the pressure of the water you would implode. Literally.
Exactly. But that would be cool. That'd be cool. Great question, Philmatic.
Or explode, not implode, explode, right?
Yeah.
Implode is
whatever.
Inward, explode is outward. Yeah. You guys know what I meant.
Yep, exactly. Let's see here. Jason K says, I agree, Tony. Roadhouse is a great guilty pleasure movie. Cool. Michael Myers says, Michael Myers in the chat room. Holy snap and crap. It's Michael Myers himself. He says, what are your thoughts that the original cast of Jurassic Park returning for Jurassic World 3? I still have yet to see Jurassic World 1 and 2. So for me, it feels a little anticlimactic. I don't know.
It's like what they're doing with fucking Halloween.
Nostalgia.
Man. So like,
why not?
I'm already checked out on Halloween Kills before it even fucking comes out, because I'm like, what's next? I mean, I've got fucking a replica of Bob's glasses back there. Mind we fucking bring those back, right? I mean, we're bringing back a fucking sheriff that what's the point? Like, my thing is this: if you were gonna bring Brackett back into the fucking equation, you should have brought him back from the fucking get-go. Now I just feel like, okay, we're just gonna continue to do fan service. What did I say about the new Halloween film that I wanted? Not film. I got all fucking Southern there on that one.
Got a feel.
I'm telling you, the more I live down here, the more that Southern draw is starting to come out, y'all. But I wanted the new movie to stand on its own. I didn't want to feel like I'm still getting references or connections to the old part of the series. The whole point of them rebooting this or relaunching it, or however you want to look at it, was a fresh start. Omit everything from the previous movies, which that was a total fucking disaster because you basically winked and nod to the entire franchise in this. So I kept saying, make this movie stand on its own. What the fuck are we doing? We're going back to Haddonfield Memorial Hospital from what I fucking can see. Now, is that a flashback sequence? Okay, maybe it is. But now, again, you're pulling from something that's already been done in the franchise. Give us something fucking new. But that's for another day.
Yes, I agree with what you're saying. In terms of Jurassic Park, I'm a big fan of the original. Not so much Jurassic World. I think that's one of... The Lost World. I think that's one of Spielberg's weaker films overall, actually, in his filmography. I actually didn't mind Jurassic Park 3. I remember seeing that. I saw all the movies in the theater. But I didn't see Jurassic World because it just... now, I hear that Jurassic World is not bad. Here, it's pretty good. You know, it's fun.
Solid.
It's entertaining.
It's a fun movie.
But I heard that Fallen Kingdom is... That's what I hear.
It's weaker, yeah.
Okay.
Chris Pratt's good. Chris Pratt is, he's cool, and I like him in it.
But what I didn't like about what I heard about Jurassic World is they're now making dinosaurs that never existed. They're making up shit.
Pretty much.
And I'm like, like the appeal for Jurassic Park to me was living vicariously through, oh my God, that thing you're looking at one moment in time really did exist and walked the earth. And that's what it would look like standing next to you. It's like, wow. Now, you get really sensational and you're making dinosaur, and I get what they're doing. Wow, now we're going to tap into the DNA and, cloning and, and mixing. And it's like, yeah, but now it just becomes a big monster movie, and it just didn't appeal to me. So, the original cast is returning for Jurassic World 3. Oh, yep. Oh, wait, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom didn't do as well as the first one. People didn't like it as much. Oh, let's bring nostalgia. It's like, of course, it's business, man. It's business. You're going to go see it because of that. If you weren't planning to go see Jurassic World 3, now you are. You know what I mean? So it's like,
and once again, leave it to Halloween to start a new trend. Okay, bring back the original actress. Let's go nostalgia, and now everybody's gonna start following suit and doing the same shit.
I wouldn't say Halloween started that. I would say I get what you're saying though.
Yeah, you know what I mean. They're bringing everybody back now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. man. So will it be a good movie? Maybe it will. Will it be fun to see them back? Sure. Will it be fun to see them, to see Jeff Goldblum? I think, sure. But, okay. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, nostalgia, why not? Everybody there needs a paycheck, I guess.
You got a
Jeff
Goldblum super chat.
Yeah. From Nick. Thank you, Nick. Poltergeist was going to be darker into the entity. Was it going to be darker? Well, guess I didn't go there. Let's see here. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Todd Fayer sends in a very generous super chat. Thank you, Todd. Much appreciated. Says, hey, Dave and Tony, do you think the Halloween sequel should have been made since Myers will be...
I'm thinking the word that should have been shouldn't.
Should not have been made since
that's what I'm thinking.
Myers will be made immortal and it will ruin the franchise again. You mean like, should Halloween Kills have been made?
Well, you knew it was once that thing crossed 150 million. I mean, that was just inevitable. Like when you cross that kind of money with a Halloween movie in 2019, the studios are like, cha-ching, here we go. Let's bring out the fucking sequel truck.
Yeah. Hey, Dave and Tony, do you think the Halloween sequel shouldn't have been made since Myers will be made immortal and it will ruin? I think he's talking about all the sequels. Right. Yes. Yeah. No, I don't. Well, you got. Sometimes I think you guys just ask me questions to get me going.
Of course, we want to see the Dave McRae rant.
You guys know that the original Halloween was supposed to be a one-off film, so I mean. It didn't need a sequel. And that's not me saying, oh, this should... No, it actually didn't. The message of the movie is there. The message of the movie is, Myers was not gone because they left it open for a sequel. He was gone to bring the whole message of the movie home. You can't kill the boogeyman. It was designed to be this low-budget Hitchcockian movie. It wasn't, but it was so successful that it was like, oh my God, let's make another one. And so, the more sequels they make, it's inevitable that it will get shittier. Now, that doesn't mean that Halloween Kills is not going to be good. Maybe it will be good. And maybe even Halloween Ends will be good. But if Blumhouse thinks that we can get 9 movies or 7 movies in this continuity, they're on crack, because it ain't going to happen. That are good movies, they're on crack, because it ain't going to happen. So, yes, I do agree with that, Todd. Thank you for the super chat.
Hang on one second. There was a Poltergeist here. Wow, that's funny because I never even knew it. And I said their names earlier of who could do. Oh, no, I said their names earlier of who could do Amityville. And he said, Brandon saying thoughts on. Okay, that's what I said earlier. I didn't know that the Russo brothers were doing. If they're doing Poltergeist, I trust them. That's right. Poltergeist is right up their alley. And I'm looking it up online and it looks like Poltergeist is getting another remake. Russo Brothers 2, as soon as this article wants to open here, and it's a reliable source, so we're good. At the helm. Yep. So it looks like Russo Brothers are. If they're going to tackle Poltergeist, just look at what if they did it in the tone of Stranger Things, I'd be down for that.
Yes. Okay. The Russo brothers tackling.
I know they're not the same brothers, but I'm just saying.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Yep. The Russo brothers tackling a Poltergeist remake. Okay, it's interesting.
Right.
You know,
Piques your interest.
Piques my interest. Yep, piques my interest. Let's see.
Oh, Michael Myers here. What, in your opinion, is the top 5 best films in cinema? I know you've asked that a couple times, dude, so I want to make sure we get it. I mean, dude, it's such a loaded question because this is always subjected to personal taste and what your tastes are. For me, I define a great film by a few categories. 1, story. 2, cinematography, for fucking sure. And 3, the aesthetics, meaning the look, the overall look and tonality of the movie. Clockwork Orange, I will always go to that. Is like that's my go-to for when I want to look at like a true art film. I gotta tell you what, the Joker. Now, this is not the Joker, Joaquin, and what Todd Phillips just did is just a book that I picked up that's really good. Go get it, by Brian Azzarello. Really fucking good graphic novel. But I need more time with the Joker. I'm going to tell you probably the Joker is going to be up there because I just saw it again for the 5th time. I'm really,
Whoa,
I'm really fucking embracing.
Dude, are you going? Are you going by yourself, or are you taking people?
Because like I'm going like super early, and now I'm looking at scenes because I can't get to it right now. I don't have it digitally, and I'm looking at scenes because I'm doing a Joker photo shoot. So I'm putting my Joker look and costume together. So I'm writing notes down or typing notes in my phone, watching it again here the other day of like how to like, you know, scenes that I might want to be inspired by, not totally rip off and recreate, like the stair scene. I'm thinking of like, okay, how can I fucking put a spin on it myself? Or like when Joaquin is walking down the hallway with his fucking pimp walk and shit, how would I want to recreate that? Because my Joker is not going to look like Joaquin's Joker. It's my own Joker. I'm giving him more of a steampunk look, but I'm stealing from like the comic books and the movies, different ideas to put together my Joker look. But yeah, I got to tell you, man, I need more time with it. I'm going to say that that's probably going to fall into one day my top 5 favorite movies of all time. Because again, awesome. Story, cinematic, the cinematography, and just the aesthetic looks. I mean, I don't know, because it's such a loaded question. How do you answer that, Dave?
Yeah,
the top 5 movies in cinema.
I can't. I mean, it's not something that I can answer off the top of my head. I mean, I can tell you a few films that are my favorites of all time. I mean, would be The Shawshank Redemption, The Green Mile.
Another great one, yeah.
Yeah, The Green Mile, Raiders of the Lost Ark, The Empire Strikes Back, you know, I mean, geez, going on, 2001: A Space Odyssey, Clockwork Orange, let's go back even further. I mean, you know, I can tell what are my favorite, but the top 5 objectively in cinema, that's hard to say, of course, but you could get a general consensus of what people would consider, you know,
well, like personal faves, you know, like Dave said, A Clockwork Orange, Halloween would be up there for me because of it. Yeah. You know, because I also think Halloween, of like, how did the movie influence me in my life? You know what I mean? That's the other factor that I put into the equation because, you know, the movie's got to influence me, and A Clockwork Orange influences me to be a better photographer. Same thing with this new Joker and Halloween. You know, when I think of the mood and lighting, not to steal your phrase, Dave, but you know, when I think of mood and atmosphere, I'm sorry, when you know, when you think of that what
my invoice is in the mail.
There you go. What what's his name did? Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. I see his face. I'm not thinking of Dean Cundy. I'm not thinking of John Carpenter. My other buddy there, not Tommy Deborah Hill. Thank you, Tommy Lee Wallace. When I think of the set design and the mood lighting that he did, I love it when I listen to him talk about that scene at the top of the stairs when Jamie Lee is walking back, and you know, and it's still blackness, and it's that slow fade up, and you see the reveal of Michael's mask behind her. When you listen to him talk about creating that scene, you can see the excitement and creating that, and the creating process of that, and the type of lighting gels that they use, and the dimmer that they chose to use. That's the kind of stuff I could just sit there and listen to them talk about that shit all fucking day, and I would just nerd out, because as a creator, that's the kind of information that I'm looking for, and that's the kind of shit that's going to motivate me to go out and do that shit, because that's the stuff I think about subliminally when I'm on my shoots. I think about those things and what those guys said and how they created these scenes.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Halloween would be up there for me, obviously.
For sure.
Super chat from Jim Dorsey says, would you guys rather be in a room for a day of a high-end... Sorry.
Is that Jim Morrison, the singer?
Jim Dorsey, I said.
Oh, Jim Dorsey.
Would you guys rather be in a room for a day of 100 giant loose tarantulas, a pit of 100 snakes, or a cave of 100 bats? You have to pick one. I would say a cave of 100 bats. That's the less creepy.
We have a family of bats. I try to go out there and see them, especially in the summertime at night. Probably about 7 or 8 of them. They just kind of swoop around our neighborhood and shit, doing their bat-like thing and whatnot. It's really cool to watch them. And what's even cooler is to listen to them communicate with each other with the fucking chirp shit. Yeah, it's really fucking cool.
We have it here too. I remember when I first realized those were bats. I was in college and I went out at night and I'm walking around and you hear like, whatever. And it's like, and I said to this girl that I was out there, I was like, what the hell are birds doing out at this hour? She said, those are birds, those are bats. Now, when I usually go out jogging at night, so I'm jogging, I'll hear them all the time and I'll see them, sometimes it'll be like, they'll fly in front of me and I'm like, whoa, fuck Batman, Yeah, no.
Snakes and spiders, they don't sit well with me.
Yeah.
I'm not quite to the Bam Margera level with, like, if you ever see how he is with snakes, like, that dude is fucking terrified of snakes.
Right,
I'm not there, but I'm just like, I see, like, a lot of snakes on my run fucking, dart out in front of me and shit, and I kind of like, all right, dude, you got the right of way. I'm just going to wait till you go, but not like, but yeah, no, bats for sure.
I see a lot of skunks and rabbits on my run, on the trails and things like that.
Wow, so your skunks and rabbits need to meet up with my flock of deer and we'll have a Bambi thing going on because I have a flock of deer that I photograph and shoot from time to time on my runs.
Nice. Let's see here. Tyler Rias says, do Canadians celebrate Halloween? Yes, of course we do. Yeah,
it's just us.
We celebrate.
We got that shit marketed.
If you're in the U.S., we celebrate everything you celebrate. Halloween's October 31st. Christmas is December 25th. Our Thanksgiving just passed last weekend, so we celebrate our Thanksgiving on the second Monday or the second weekend, essentially, of October. But we now do Black Fridays up here. Our Easters are the same. Our what other holidays are there? I mean, it's the same. It's the same. It's the same. There's some minor differences, but it's essentially the same.
But I'm going to say, let me finish the whole statement before people freak out and get upset. I'm going to say the U.S. does it better. And the reason why is only because I want Dave to do the impersonation is because Trump said so.
Excuse me, Mr. McRae. The U.S. is phenomenal, okay? We're tremendous. We're better than Canada. Your Prime Minister, Justine Trudeau.
Mr. President, it's Justin.
Whatever, I don't care. We're better. We're amazing. It's great, okay?
And that's why I did that. For you folks.
Oh, Mr. Trump.
It's amazing. It's wonderful. It's tremendous. It's the best of all time. The best. It's amazing. We're great.
I got him going, amazing. Guys.
We are better than you little Weasley Canadians. You love me. You know you do.
Michael Anderson, have you guys watched 3 from Hell? It's watchable and better than I expected. Yeah, I agree with you. I have seen it. I saw it when it came out back in September in its 3-day run there, and it just came out digitally. I haven't bought it yet, but I am planning to buy it. That might even be my horror movie tonight that I watch on my one horror movie a day for a year. Cool. It's good. Dave, I don't. Have you seen it yet? 3 from Hell?
No, not yet.
Yeah, I think you're going to appreciate it. I agree with what he said, like what Michael said, because we have the same taste. I went in there with very fucking low expectations, and I came out like, all right, not bad.
All right. Well, we'll see. I'll hold you to it if it.
Just wait to Netflix. I'm sure Netflix will grab it.
Okay. Let's see here. Super chat comes in from PC Pierce. Thank you, PC. Says, if you could bring back one of these 4 for a longer career, who would it be? Oh, this is going to be a good question. This is going to be good.
Oh,
John Belushi, Chris Farley, John
Candy,
Candy, or Andy Kaufman. For me personally, I would say John Candy. Not because he's Canadian and from Toronto, but because I just adored John Candy.
I know, and I'm looking at him and Kaufman's name. The other two, no. Him, I wasn't really like. I take nothing away from Chris Farley. I just didn't really get on the Chris Farley train. When he got big with Tommy Boy and SNL and whatnot. He's funny. He just wasn't like you know what I mean. Like I don't want to sound like I'm criticizing Chris Farley because he was a funny guy.
Yeah. He was. He was hilarious.
John Belushi, same thing. Fucking John. I mean, John Belushi, Animal House, fucking, SNL. Fucking.
The thing with Chris Farley, though, is sorry to interrupt, but I just want to say that, look, he was hilarious, no doubt about it. Gone way before his time.
Yeah.
But Chris Farley was fat funny, and most of the humor revolved around him being fat. And he was very good at it. John Candy was fat, sure. But
he had a charm to his comedy.
He was, I mean, I just watched Planes, Trains, and Automobiles last weekend with my girlfriend because it was Thanksgiving here, and that's a Thanksgiving movie, even though it's American, it's still a Thanksgiving movie. And it's one of my favorite comedies of all time. I mean, look, do they play into his weight a little bit in some of his movies? Sure, but it's the least, he's not sitting there, he's not the butt of fat jokes.
Right.
He was just funny and charming.
Is The Great Outdoors when he eats the steak. They're not making fat jokes, but because of his, he's a big guy, he felt, he tackled the fucking steak. And Great Outdoors is another great Candy film. I mean, that's tough because I loved the genius, even though Kaufman was way before your and my time, old enough to appreciate him.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I would have loved to have seen what else he could have done because he was just, he's such a creative genius that's why I get what you're saying about John Candy, and I'm like so on board with that. But like the creative genius of Andy Kaufman, I would have loved to have seen like what else would he have done? You know what I mean? And I feel like that's where I lean a little bit towards, because I think creatively he would have done a lot more stuff that we probably wouldn't have even seen coming. Gotcha. Not even just on the comedic side, but yeah, it's tough because I mean, I said this maybe last week that it's been, it's been so long since we've seen a good John Candy film where it's like we're almost overdue for one.
Yeah, well, he died, what was it, 25 years ago, this past March.
What's your favorite Candy film?
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, hands down. And then
like,
probably followed by either The Great
Uncle
Outdoors. Buck. Probably followed by the Planes, Trains, The Great Outdoors, Uncle Buck.
Splash, he's good in that too.
Oh, he's good in that. Even Summer Rental was, not bad.
He's short in Vacation, but he's decent.
Yeah, he's
in
fucking hilarious. Oh yeah, for sure. Okay, we'll go just a couple of minutes longer. I've got to skedaddle and get some work in the morning, but let's see here. A couple super chats. Nick, $2 says the Entity 82 had a lawsuit against Poltergeist. I heard something about that.
Did?
Yeah, something about that. I don't know the details, though. Nick follows up with, you should check out The Entity 82. I have seen it, but not in a long time, so I'd have to see that again. Have you seen The Entity?
Not in a while.
No?
As I yawn here. No, not in a while.
Well, it is 11 p.m. Eastern. Nick follows up again and says, only movie to make me cry was Planes, Trains. Oh, yes, fuck! How did I skip this? Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Now that's an ending that makes you go, woo! Doesn't John, I mean, he plays that role so beautifully, and you don't see it coming, but if you watch the movie again, you pick up on the cues that tell you that, yeah, he's homeless, you know, like oh my God. Yeah. He was, such a talent. Poor guy. I just wish he'd had managed his weight better, because he'd probably still be here today. Super chat from Scott B. Thank you, Scott. Says, anyone remember the movie Happy Birthday to Me? Thoughts? I feel that the movie was swept under the rug when it was good, with a lot of suspense and very little gore. I've never heard of that movie. Have you heard of that movie?
I've heard of Happy Death Day. I've heard of that's the only one I heard. Is Happy Birthday to Me like the opposite? Like, because you know how movies are named something different in other countries,
right? I don't know. I suspect,
because I've never heard of that.
I haven't either, unless it's a very old movie. I haven't heard of it. I'll have to Google that shit and check it out. Yeah, very interesting. Empire Tiberius says, who's Harry Crumb? Oh, fuck, yes, who's Harry Crumb?
Who's Harry Crumb?
Forgot
Another
about
great
that
Candy
one.
Movie.
Another great one. Oh, I love it. I love when he opens the door and he's all there like this and the door just slams back in his face. Or I love when the car gets hooked onto the other car, and so it looks like he's like tailing them, like he's not losing them at all. And the guy's like, fuck, this guy's good, man. You know, so stupid. Such a stupid movie, but it's the good kind of Stupid.
Charlie McGrath with Margaret Kidder in the discussion from Amityville. Any thoughts on Superman, Dave, Tony? Ideas on what needs to happen for the character to find success in the cinemas again? Yeah, it needs to be put to rest for a while. It needs to have a long rest. And let me explain why. Okay, you're coming off of, from 2001 to 2010, you had a successful show based around the Superman character in Smallville. I'm not saying it's Superman. It's based around the character of Clark Kent becoming Superman. In between that, you had the Brandon Roth Superman Returns, which was not received well because it is technically the Christopher Reeves pickup from, at the end of Superman 2, I believe that's the storyline of Brandon's Superman Returns. Not received well at all. Mixed feelings. A lot of people wanted Welling to play Superman because Welling was popular and hot at the time because it's early 2000s. Right. Smallville was fucking cranking. And then you had the new ones here with Henry. And I just think everything that you've had in the last, we'll say 15 years, going back to Smallville to now, with everything, it's been Superman to death. And I think you need a good break for it to, for when you come back to it, you're going to appreciate it more. You're going to embrace it like an old friend again. I think, and from that perspective, with a fresh set of eyes, that's where you're going to get a good quality Superman. I know that's not the answer, Charlie, you're going to want to hear because you're asking it. I'm sure you're probably a Superman fan, but truly, if you want to do the character justice, no pun, you need a break and you need to step back for a little bit and then come back at it again with fresh eyes.
Yeah, that's actually a really good answer, especially with everything that's going on with DC right now. It would just feel very, very muddied and saturated and confusing and just sloppy. It would feel sloppy. So I agree with that. Okay, that's gonna do it for episode 42 of Two Dudes. Point 5 of Two Dudes and Some Bullshit. Once again, if we did not get to your questions, it's never personal. There's a lot of people in the chat room. We like to be thorough with our answers, but we're here every week. At least we try to be. So we'll probably be able to get you at some point. Thank you for the super chats, folks who supported the channel that way. But no matter what, we appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate your support to the show and to the channel. We think you guys are awesome and amazing. And Tony and I will be back as of right now, next Monday as of right now.
And we got a good episode coming up on Monday with 2 iconic films for you guys.
Yes, we are. I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, really I've been waiting for the tail end of October here because these next 2 streams you guys are going to appreciate. I think you guys are going to appreciate it. Anyways.
Yes, I think so too. It's gonna be it's gonna be pretty good. And Halloween's just around the corner, so it's gonna be a lot of fun. So anyway, I'm Dave McRae. All my links are in the description. Instagram, Twitter, IMDb, official website. It's all down there. Check them out. And Tony's link to his Instagram is down there as well. If you're not following Tony on Instagram and you have Instagram, follow him now. He is continuously producing, or continually, whatever way you want to look at it, continuously, I should say, producing awesome horror photos with iconic characters, and it's just going to get better and better with all these all this new shit that he's bringing in. So follow his link to his Instagram down there as well. Tony, any last words?
Yeah, no, I appreciate your guys' continued support on Instagram. I'm glad you got. I was a little hesitant with the horror community. I wasn't sure, not the horror.
Not the whore.
Yeah, the horror. When I, announced that I was going to do Joker and Harley Quinn, because I was like, fuck, are they going to hate me for this? But you guys have embraced it. I've showed you guys some of the costumes and stuff that's been putting together by the seamstress and the costume designers that I've linked up with here. So I appreciate that because I was nervous, man, because I know how the horror community can get. But I felt with those 2 characters that people would, I felt that you guys would give that as a free pass because they sort of fall within the genre, sort of, kind of, But anyways, again, the support you guys give on there, I truly appreciate it. And on the first time we did this, Dave, you mentioned about your video movie independent production. I think you should briefly mention that here as we sign off because I don't want that to get cut off because you did talk about it, and I'm super stoked for you that you're doing this film project with Cecil and the Dylan's Nightmare. So I can't wait to see that. I saw the little teaser you gave us of getting into character. That was fucking cool.
Yeah, well, I just uploaded a video this evening talking all about it, so you can definitely check that out. It's called Dylan's New Nightmare, My Official Announcement, if you're not familiar with what's going on. But very briefly, I've signed on to play Freddy Krueger in a Nightmare on Elm Street fan film, but not just any fan film, a fan film that's being produced by Vincent DiSanti, who wrote, direct, and produced Never Hike Alone. Arguably not just the greatest Friday the 13th fan film online right now, but arguably one of the greatest fan films ever created. He has signed on to produce it, and he's producing it with Cecil Laird of The Horror Show and Renee Rivas of Renee Rivas Productions, who is also the DP, who's a phenomenal DP, and we've got Miko Hughes coming back to reprise his role of Dylan Porter from Wes Craven's New Nightmare in 1994. And of course, you also know him from Kindergarten Cop. He's the boys have a penis, girls have a vagina kid. He was also Gage in the original Pet Sematary. Full House. He played an autistic boy in Mercury Rising with Bruce Willis. And you know him. He's coming back to reprise his role as Dylan Porter, and they wanted me to play Freddy. So I'm going to be playing Freddy Krueger in Dylan's New Nightmare. It's a short film, hopefully between maybe 25 and 30 minutes long, maybe a bit longer, who knows.
Damn, that's short, but that's getting borderline feature.
Well, feature would be anything over an hour, I'd say. But
that's what I mean, borderline. You're getting close to that borderline as close to feature.
Yeah. So but who knows? So there is an Indiegogo campaign on right now to help raise money for it. Watch the video. If you go to I don't have the link set up here, but if you go to the link or the video that I on my channel where I talk about this, the link to all that is there. We really need your support, guys, because making movies, even short films costs a lot of money. It's not for profit, so we're not going to be making any money, residual money from this film. But to make the movie in and of itself does cost some money, and the level of production value that they're going to be bringing to this movie is Never Hike Alone level production value. And I'm going to be playing Freddy Krueger in the movie. And what's so awesome about it too is that Nora Hewitt, who is a Los Angeles special effects makeup artist who won season 9 of Face Off, that competition show. Yeah. She's also a graduate of the Tom Savini School of Special Effects Makeup. She's going to be doing the Freddy Krueger makeup on my face. Yeah, folks, this isn't a silicone mask. Now, the silicone masks are amazing.
They're great, but they're limited.
They're limited. And so she's going to be doing makeup Robert Englund Elm Street style, like I'm sitting in the chair. She's going to be doing a face cast of my face. I'm flying to Hollywood next month to attend the Voice Arts Awards because I was nominated again, which is really cool. I'll be at Warner Brothers. But while I'm there, I'm going to be there for about 4 or 5 days. While I'm there, I'm going to hook up with Nora, and she's going to take a cast of my face and make her own version of Freddy Krueger because she wants to put her stamp on it. So now I'm not going to be doing a Robert Englund impression, but I'm going to be doing my version of the darker Freddy, bringing that essence of what Robert did there. And I'm gonna. It's big shoes to fill, lot of pressure, but I'm committed to it. I'm gonna listen. No matter how good I am, not everybody's gonna like it. Right? I mean, there's just going to be, no matter how good the movie is, there's
always naysayers.
Of course. I mean, look at Never Hike Alone. Phenomenal. But there's people that don't like it. You just, you leave it all out there and you do the best you can. I mean, the team they've assembled to bring Freddy back to the small screen, at the very least, is just awesome. And I am so honored that they wanted me to don the fedora and the gloves. So,
no, I think it's great that you guys are doing this because it's like, the shit that's going on with the studios and Friday the 13th. I mean, it's like fans are like saying, what, fuck you guys. We ain't going to sit around like you're doing here with Freddy. You don't need to nowadays, you don't need to wait for them to the studios decide hey, we're going to give you something new with Freddy. Well, you can do shit like this to give the fans a little bit more, Well,
exactly. And the thing that's really cool about this is that Vincent DiSanti, I think it's DiSanti, the writer, director, producer, and star, he was Jason in Never Hike Alone. Now that was such a big success, the other ideas that he had for the Never Hike Alone movie, or series is starting to come out because he just finished his Indiegogo campaign, which was hugely successful, to do a prequel called Never Hike in the Snow. And he has other ideas as well. Well, I can't say too much about the ideas for this Elm Street thing, but there are, let's just say, if I was to tell you, if Dylan's New Nightmare is successful, if I was to tell you the ideas they have, and what could be coming, you'd just be saying, take my fucking money now. Like, let's just say,
and that's not exaggerating because I know. He's talking about, it's fact.
Let's just say that the buck may not stop at Miko. So I'm just saying that I'm on board, not just because of Miko, not just because of Vince, not just because of Renee and Cecil and everybody else involved.
Well, you love the IP.
But I love the IP, and I love the potential of where this could go if it's successful, because I just think it's so much fun to be a part of something like this, and to be the only other person to play Freddy opposite little Dylan Porter. Well, he's not so, little anymore. He's 30 years old, but to be opposite, is really cool. So
I mean, his only other Freddy is Robert. So it's you and Robert. That's me and Robert, baby. That's not like a small. That's dope, man.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. So anything you can look. Money can be tight, right? Money doesn't grow on trees.
It's always tough to ask people for money. I get it.
If you can't support financially, share it. Talk to your friends. If you have a channel where you do videos, upload videos and talk about it, right? That we need the word to be continued to be spread out there so it can get into the hands of some people who are like, you know what? Here's a little bit. It's really important. Making movies. Listen, and the same thing is going to happen when I tackle It's Me, Billy. Now, It's Me, Billy is still in development, right? We've completed the first draft, which is awesome. But Bruce, and I now are going to tackle the, draft 2 and things like that. But the same thing's going to happen, right? Because, just to rent out locations, we want to use this home. Can cost thousands of dollars, and that's just the rental of the locations. So you got to keep those things in mind. So anything that you can help with is greatly appreciated. We think you guys are amazing, and I'm really excited about it to bring Freddy back. And not everybody's going to like what I do, and I'm sure there are people that are not happy that it's me, but I will just have to set out and prove them wrong, and I'm up for the task. So, thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you next Monday for another episode of Two Dudes and Some Bullshit. Cheers.
Good night.